Chapter 233. After reading the message, Li Daochong immediately changed his direction and sped towards Scarlet Sun University. Li Daochong had mastered the flying spirit steps to the point of perfection. With a single leap, he could traverse several miles, and his speed was even faster than a flying shuttle. In less than an hour, Li Daochong arrived at the entrance of Scarlet Sun University. Glancing at the grand entrance of Planet Scarlet Sun's No. 1 school, Li Daochong slowly walked into Scarlet Sun University like a passerby. There was a sea of people in the school, and all of them were wearing gorgeous robes. The students who were able to participate in the joint examination were either dragons among men or phoenixes among men. Not to mention their family backgrounds, their strength and talent were all first-class geniuses. Li Daochong was dressed in an old blue martial robe, and he seemed out of place in the crowd. He looked like a poor kid who had never seen the world and had come to join in on the fun. He was here to broaden his horizons. Li Daochong turned a blind eye to the strange gazes directed at him from all directions and headed straight for the venue. Daochong. Li Daochong had just walked out of Scarlet Sun University's tree-lined avenue when he heard a familiar voice behind him. Li Daochong stopped and turned around. Yi Feiyue was wearing a light blue robe and looking at him in surprise. "It's really you." Yi Feiyue was in disbelief. Yi Feiyue had never seen Li Daochong since Li Daochong was hospitalized after being injured by Zhao Puyi during the tournament. Every time Yi Feiyue bought a talisman, she would think of Li Daochong, but this kid seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Yi Feiyue used her family's power to search for Li Daochong, but there was no news. It was rumored that Li Daochong's spirit vein was shattered and he was expelled from the university. He was already half dead. Yi Feiyue didn't believe the rumors, but as time passed, she had no choice but to believe it. Zhao Puyi was a foundation establishment cultivator, while Li Daochong was only a qi refinement cultivator. It was already a miracle that a qi refinement cultivator didn't die after receiving a palm strike from a foundation establishment cultivator. Yi Feiyue thought that she would never see Li Daochong again in her life. No cultivator could withstand the impact of a shattered spirit vein. Yi Feiyue never expected to see Li Daochong at Scarlet Sun University. In fact, when Li Daochong's figure appeared on the tree-lined avenue, she had already seen him. At first, she thought she was mistaken. Only when she got closer did she realize that it was really Li Daochong. She cried out in excitement. Yi Feiyue was accompanied by a few students, but they weren't students of Vast Heaven University. They were students from Scarlet Sun Planet who came to participate in the joint examination. These students all came from extraordinary backgrounds, and they knew Yi Feiyue because they had business dealings with the Yi clan. Among them, the most powerful one was Scarlet Sun University's Superclass No. 1 Chao Yanhui. The Chao clan was also one of the 4 great clans of Scarlet Sun Planet, and their status and strength were unparalleled. Yi Feiyue stood among this group of students, and the only thing she could rely on was her appearance. The group of students followed Chao Yanhui's lead. The group of 5, 2 women and 3 men, attracted the attention of many students as they walked together. Chao Yanhui's reputation on Scarlet Sun Planet was just like Zhao Wujin's on Blue Bay Star. Chao Yanhui had a natural advantage over Zhao Wujin, and that was his family background. Zhao Wujin couldn't compare with Chao Yanhui in this aspect. In terms of cultivation, Chao Yanhui was also ahead above Zhao Wujin. The former was already at foundation establishment, while the latter was at the peak of qi condensation. Chao Yanhui had taken a fancy to Yi Feiyue 3 years ago, but she was too far apart. Of course, that wasn't the main reason. With the Chao clan's strength and Chao Yanhui's talent, there was no girl he couldn't get his hands on as long as he wanted. However, the Yi clan was very mysterious, and their nepotism was intricate and complicated. One must know that the Shenghua Federation once had several superclans, and the Yi clan was one of them. The Yi clan that Yi Feiyue belonged to was a branch of the Super Yi clan. Although they didn't seem to be related now, This kind of ancient clan, no matter how inconspicuous it seemed on the surface, shouldn't be easily provoked. Otherwise, one wouldn't even know how one got into trouble. Therefore, Chao Yanhui didn't take Yi Feiyue by force, but took the role of a suitor. Unfortunately, Yi Feiyue didn't seem to feel Chao Yanhui's goodwill at all. Her attitude towards Chao Yanhui had always been that of a friend. Chao Yanhui was very angry about this, but he couldn't express it. Today, when he met Yi Feiyue again, Chao Yanhui repeatedly expressed his goodwill and even wanted to give her an Earth-rank magic weapon, but he was tactfully rejected. Being rejected in front of his friends, Chao Yanhui felt humiliated and unhappy. His friends were also helping Chao Yanhui to pursue Yi Feiyue in the open and in the dark. Lu Mao was the most enthusiastic one among them, and he would often tell Yi Feiyue how powerful Chao Yanhui was. Of course, Chao Yanhui was indeed very powerful. The few of them stood at the end of the boulevard, gathered together, and chatted while waiting for the joint examination to start. However, Yi Feiyue seemed absent-minded during the whole process. Her eyes were wandering, and she talked to them intermittently. When Chao Yanhui was talking to Yi Feiyue, the latter didn't even look at him. That was fine, but before he could finish speaking, Yi Feiyue suddenly turned around and chased after a young man. Seeing Yi Feiyue, Li Daochong was also quite surprised. He nodded and said, "It's you. Why are you at Scarlet Sun University?" Yi Feiyue was stunned for a moment, but then she reacted. Li Daochong's spirit vein was shattered, so how could he know about the joint examination? He probably came here for other things. She replied, "Today's joint examination is jointly organized by Scarlet Sun Star and Blue Bay Star." "Oh, is that so?" Li Daochong nodded in response. At the same time, his eyes revealed surprise, and his expression slightly changed. "Two stars jointly organized? Interesting, so they're all here?" Li Daochong's mind flashed, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Feiyue, is he your friend?" Chao Yanhui followed and asked. "Yes, he's my former classmate," Yi Feiyue replied simply. She didn't want to tell Chao Yanhui and the others about Li Daochong's actual situation. If they knew, they would most likely run on Li Daochong. "Oh, then let's go together. The meeting is about to begin," Chao Yanhui said generously. In fact, he didn't even look at Li Daochong at all. This kind of pitiful guy with a weak aura wasn't worth Chao Yanhui's attention at all. The invitation was just to please Yi Feiyue. Lu Mao saw that Chao Yanhui's expression was unhappy. After looking up and down at Li Daochong, he asked, "May I know which university this friend is from?" "Beiyang." Li Daochong replied casually. "Beiyang?" As soon as Li Daochong's words came out, several people were stunned. "You're a student of Beiyang University?" Lu Mao asked for confirmation. "Yes." Li Daochong didn't have the mood to talk to people he didn't know. If it weren't for Yi Feiyue, he wouldn't have bothered with these guys. "Oh, then what are you doing here?" Lu Mao continued to ask with an ulterior motive. The other students naturally understood what this joke meant. Beiyang University was a famous university on planet Scarlet Sunday. It had nothing and was barely hanging on by relying on the 2 joint examination quotas that Yung Byung-ha got. They originally thought that this young man had some background or ability since he knew Yi Feiyue, but they didn't expect him to be a bad student at Beiyang University. Suddenly, the way they looked at Li Daochong changed. A sense of superiority spontaneously arose. In addition, these people all came from famous universities. Chao Yanhui and Lu Mao were both students of Scarlet Sun University. Although the other man and woman were not from Scarlet Sun University, they were still one of the top 3 famous universities on planet Scarlet Sunday. "I'm here to take a look," Li Daochong replied meaningfully. "You're only at the 5th layer of the Qi refinement realm. If you were in another cultivation school, you'd be at the 8th or 9th layer of the Qi refinement realm by now. Since you're Yi Feiyue's friend, why don't you look for Brother Chao and ask him to help you transfer to another school? Even if you want to transfer to Qiyang University, The Chow family can do it with just a word. Friend, you really know what's going on today. Lu Mao had an expression of, I'm doing this for your own good, as he tried to persuade him earnestly. Yi Feiyue had also heard of the reputation of Beiyang University. At this time, when she heard that Li Daochong was currently studying at Beiyang University, her beautiful eyes revealed a bit of sympathy. That monstrous genius from the hegemony tournament had now fallen to such a state? Yi Feiyue sighed in her heart. She felt that Lu Mao was right, so she said, Daochong, why don't you transfer schools? I heard that Beiyang University isn't very good. Li Daochong didn't listen to what Lu Mao said at all. His eyes were looking elsewhere, and he saw Qian Changhai. No, Beiyang University is pretty good. After saying that, Li Daochong walked around them and walked towards Qian Changhai. She smiled gracefully and said, All right, I'll accept it. Thank you. You're welcome. Li Daochong chuckled. Not far away, Chao Yanhui, who was watching the two of them, was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Although he couldn't hear the conversation between the two clearly, he roughly knew that the brat had given the two spirit talismans to Yi Feiyue and that the latter had happily accepted them. Chao Yanhui was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He had just given Yi Feiyue an Earth-grade magic treasure worth tens of millions, but Yi Feiyue had rejected it in front of everyone. He turned around and saw that an unknown student from Beiyang University had given her two spirit-shattering talismans. Yet, she had accepted them and even looked quite happy. Wasn't this a king slap to Chao Yanhui's face? How could such a person compare to him, Chao Yanhui? Regardless of family background, strength, or talent, they weren't on the same level. The feeling of being slapped in the face by an ant made Chao Yanhui so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Brother Chao, don't be angry. That brat is about to make a fool of himself. Let's go and take a look. Lu Mao saw Chao Yanhui's displeased expression and hurriedly reminded him. Make a fool of himself? Make a fool of himself? The student surnamed Zhang asked in confusion. That brat looks like he wants to enter the venue, but the venue isn't for anyone to enter. Only those who have obtained the qualification to enter or are brought in by the school's leaders can enter. That brat should take a piss and look at himself in the mirror if he came to watch the show. Some places can't be entered just because you want to. He will definitely be stopped outside. With so many people watching, wouldn't he make a fool of himself? Lu Mao explained with a cunning expression. Let's go and take a look. Chao Yanhui immediately said. Then, the few of them followed. Daochong, have you been on Scarlet Sun Planet for the past few months? Yi Feiyue asked curiously. And, after I was discharged from the hospital, I came here with Dean Qian. Li Daochong replied. The two of them chatted as they walked. Yi Feiyue told Li Daochong about the Blue Bay Stars situation, especially reminding Li Daochong to be careful of the Zhao family. These days, the Zhao family had been moving around everywhere, and the Zhan family had already allied with the Zhao family. The Li family had been having a hard time in Blue Bay Star recently. The family business was declining day by day, and they were ranked last among the four great families. The Zhao family was ambitious and wanted to replace the Li family, and they were seeing initial result. Because Zhao Wujin's future was bright, the director of the Blue Bay Stars Department of Education, Yu Boming, emphasized that they must focus on nurturing Zhao Wujin. He would allocate resources to Zhao Wujin's cultivation at all costs. Not only that, but a few cultivation companies also gave the Zhao family a lot of convenience in order to curry favor with them in the future. In just a few months, the Zhao family's business on Blue Bay Star expanded rapidly, and they became the fifth great family. It was only a matter of time before the Li family was replaced. If it weren't for the fact that the Li family still had an old ancestor keeping watch, they would have already been replaced by the Zhao family. The Zhao family doesn't have any powerful figures keeping watch. Apart from Zhao Wujin, There are only 2 foundation establishment cultivators in the entire family. No matter how much they expand their business, without powerful cultivators, it won't be easy to replace the Li family. After listening to Yi Feiyue's explanation, Li Daochong felt that the Zhao family was overestimating their capabilities. The Zhao family's biggest problem is that they don't have any powerful cultivators. However, it is said that a mysterious hermit returned to the Zhao family and had a fortuitous encounter in the past few decades. He is now at the early Jindan stage. If the rumors are true, the Zhao family will replace the Li family as one of the 4 great families in a month or 2. Yi Feiyue told Li Daochong everything she knew to remind him to be careful. Oh, Li Daochong faintly replied and didn't say anything else, as if he wasn't very concerned. Daochong, it is said that the Zhao family sent a lot of people to the mobilization meeting this time. Before, I always felt that it was strange. Although the joint examination is important, it is only limited to the reference students. For the family, they only need to support behind the scenes. There is no need to mobilize so many people. After seeing you and Dean Qian, I feel that the Zhao family might have come with a premeditated plan. It is best that you don't go and watch the show and avoid the limelight for a while. Yi Feiyue advised. Li Daochong smiled and said, some things can't be avoided. If the Zhao family wants to deal with me, then let them come. I am not afraid of them. Li Daochong said it casually, but Yi Feiyue heard another meaning. She thought that Li Daochong meant that he was barefooted and wasn't afraid of those who wore shoes. Now that his spirit meridians were shattered, he was a cripple. Could it be that the Zhao family really dared to openly kill him? Daochong, don't let loyalty get the better of you. If you need anything, your friends will help you. Ouyang Qian, Lu Feng, Lu Ming, Situlan, and Orson have all met. Everyone discussed and agreed to fork out some money to let you hide in the 3-ring star domain. Yi Feiyue looked at Li Daochong with a worried expression. I appreciate your good intentions, but you can keep the money for your own cultivation. The Zhao family can't do anything to me. Li Daochong said this, but a warm current flowed in his heart. He didn't expect these people to be so concerned about him. But Yi Feiyue didn't give up and wanted to continue persuading, but she was interrupted. Please show me your reference document. As the 2 spoke, they had already walked to the edge of the venue. At this time, there were more than 10 staff members busily inspecting the documents of people entering and leaving. Those without documents were not allowed to enter. Yi Feiyue took out her reference document. The staff member glanced at it and let it pass. He then looked at Li Daochong and said, It's yours. It's not with me. Someone will send it over later. Li Daochong spoke the truth. Send it over? This excuse has been used by hundreds of people today. If you want to lie, come up with something new. If you don't have a reference document, please leave. Sun Chongqing looked at Li Daochong with disdain. You better let me in. Li Daochong didn't want to say much, but when he heard the other party say that he was lying, he felt unhappy and said coldly, Better let you in? Who do you think you are? Hurry up and leave. There are many people like you who want to get away. If you don't leave, I'll call the security guards to ask you to leave. Sun Chongqing glared. Lecturer Sun, why are you being so polite with this kind of person? Just drive him away. He's dressed like a beggar and doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm afraid there's something wrong with his brain. A female staff member standing opposite him rolled her eyes. The surrounding students looked at Li Daochong with a smile. Chao Yanhui, who had followed along, saw Li Daochong make a fool of himself. The jealousy in his heart was mostly extinguished. He deliberately walked past Li Daochong. When Sun Chongqing saw Chao Yanhui, he immediately put away the impatience on his face and greeted him with a smile. Yanhui, you're here. Hurry up and go in. Assistant Su and Principal Zhu are waiting for you in the lounge. Chao Yanhui nodded and walked through the passage with a proud expression. Lu Mao followed closely behind. Sun Chongqing didn't have any intention of asking for their identification. "Brother Chow, some people are clearly not qualified to participate, but they insist on making a fool of themselves. After being exposed on the spot, they still have the nerve to stay. If it were me, I would have found a hole to hide in." Lu Mao mocked Li Daochong when he walked past him. "Isn't that so? He has the nerve to participate in the joint examination when he's studying at Beiyang University." "TSK, the student surnamed Zhang said. Chow Yinhui patted Sun Chongqing's shoulder. "Lecturer Sun, you did a good job. I'll tell Principal Zhu." Sun Chongqing's face was full of flattery after hearing that. He was overjoyed. He could see that Chow Yinhui seemed to be hostile to that kid. His unintentional action this time was worth it. Chow Yinhui was the future star of Qiyang University and the first heir of the Chow family. If he praised him in front of Principal Zhu, his promotion next year would be a sure thing. "Brother Li, you're here too." A girl's crisp and pleasant voice suddenly rang out. Chow Yinhui looked in the direction of the voice and saw a girl with a petite figure and a pure appearance with a hint of coldness walking over. In terms of beauty, she was comparable to Yi Feiyue, but the two girls had different styles. Chapter 235. How could Chow Yinhui not know Huang Jiran? However, this girl had a powerful backing and the Huang family was a government official's family. Chow Yinhui did not want to provoke them. Huang Jiran's appearance was like a clear stream, immediately refreshing the surroundings. Many students' eyes lit up. Li Daochong turned to look at Huang Jiran. His face was calm, as if the mockery from before did not affect him at all. Even when Li Daochong was weak, he was still calm, let alone now. Li Daochong was about to reach the foundation establishment stage. As long as others did not provoke him, how could a few words affect his mood? Li Daochong only had one goal, to become the strongest cultivator. When a person set a big goal, their state of mind would be on another level. These people were just clowns in Li Daochong's eyes, not worth mentioning. Even if Chow Yinhui had some strength, in front of Li Daochong, he was nothing. After Li Daochong went through the test, he had a better understanding of his own strength. The tongue-pulling evil spirit was a mature form. It needed to be at least at the peak of the qi gathering stage to deal with it. In other words, Li Daochong's true strength was 2 stages higher. Now that Li Daochong was at the peak of the qi gathering stage, he could fight against foundation establishment cultivators. Even those who had just entered the foundation establishment stage were not Li Daochong's match. With strength, there was confidence. With a goal, there was no distractions. "I'm here." Li Daochong nodded. "Why don't you go in?" Huang Jiran heard the conversation when she walked over and asked deliberately. These people were talking about Li Daochong like this. Huang Jiran was extremely unhappy. "I can't go in without a certificate," Li Daochong said indifferently. "Is that so?" Huang Jiran walked in front of Sun Chongqing and looked at him. The latter's heart skipped a beat. How could Sun Chongqing not know Huang Jiran? Several members of the Huang family worked in the Red Sun Planet's education department. In other words, they were the leaders under Sun Chongqing. "Lecturer Sun, why can't you go in?" Huang Jiran asked. "He doesn't have a reference card." Sun Chongqing's face revealed a difficult expression. His heart that had been wild with joy because of Chow Yinhui's words immediately cooled down. "You won't let me in without a reference card. Will you let me in if I bring him in?" Huang Jiran questioned. "Miss Huang, I'm afraid that's not in accordance with the rules. Only the school leaders can bring people in," Sun Chongqing braced himself and said. "What about me?" Huang Yuelong walked out of the crowd, followed by a few members of the Huang family. Sun Chongqing couldn't help but shudder when he saw the Huang clan's patriarch, Huang Yuelong. He looked at Li Daochong with a frightened expression. How could he have thought that this shabbily dressed and weak brat would actually know someone from the Huang family? Huang Jiran had spoken up for him, but now Huang Yuelong had also spoken up for him. The nature of the situation immediately changed. Where did this kid come from? Sun Chongqing wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He turned to look at Li Daochong. Big brother, why didn't you tell me earlier that you had such a powerful backer? If you had told me earlier, I would have let you in. Also, why are you dressed like this? Patriarch Huang, of course you can bring him in, Sun Chongqing forced himself to say. That's good. Huang Yuelong's unfriendly gaze swept past Sun Chongqing. When it landed on Li Daochong, a bright smile appeared on his serious face. He continued, Daochong, if you wanted to enter, you should have said so earlier. You could have let Geron come with you, lest others look down on you. Sun Chongqing was scolded like a dog in front of his face. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He still had a smile on his face and pretended that he didn't hear anything. Even if he did, he wouldn't understand. Lu Mao was shocked. Brother Chow, how does that kid know Huang Jiaran? And it seems like their relationship isn't ordinary. Chow Yanhui's face was cold. Who knows? What are you waiting for? Let's go. Are you going to stay here and watch that kid show off? Yes. Lu Mao nodded repeatedly and followed Chow Yanhui into the venue. Yi Feiyue stood at the side with a face of surprise. She didn't expect Li Daochong to know such a powerful person in just a few months after coming to Planet Scarlet Sunday. Oh right, even if Li Daochong's spirit root was shattered, he was still an extremely powerful spirit sequence master. He even had a mysterious master behind him. It wasn't strange for him to meet such a powerful person. No wonder Li Daochong said that someone would send the credentials over. It seemed like he was talking about this middle-aged man. With Huang Yuelong leading the way, they entered the venue without any obstructions. After entering, Huang Yuelong still had things to do, so he left after exchanging a few pleasantries with Li Daochong. When Huang Yuelong left, he specially asked Huang Jiaran to accompany Li Daochong, causing Huang Jiaran's face to turn red. The venue wasn't big. It was a temporary training hall that could accommodate a few hundred people. At this moment, half of the seats were already filled. Most of them were students who had obtained the qualification to participate. However, such a big venue was enough. Even if Planet Scarlet Sun and Blue Bay Star were combined, there were only a few dozen students who were qualified to participate in the joint examination of 100 schools. The rest were students with decent strength and talent. The purpose of letting them come was to motivate them. Li Daochong scanned the venue and finally found Qian Chonghai and a group of students from Beiyang University in a corner. Li Daochong immediately walked over. Qian Chonghai had seen Li Daochong before, but in the end, he didn't show himself. Instead, he deliberately avoided him. The old man had put in a lot of effort. He knew that one needed a reference card to enter the venue. Without it, one couldn't enter. Qian Chonghai was naturally happy to know that Li Daochong wasn't dead. However, Qian Chonghai felt that it would be better if this kid didn't come since the Blue Bay Stars group of people who had a grudge against Li Daochong were all here. When he saw that Li Daochong had actually entered the venue and found him, Qian Chonghai sighed in his heart. He was afraid that something bad was going to happen today. Daochong, you shouldn't have come, Qian Chonghai said to Li Daochong with some worry on his old face. Grandpa Qian, since I'm here, I'll just take things as they come. The Zhao family can't do anything to me. Li Daochong knew what Qian Chonghai meant. Daochong, I'm afraid things aren't as simple as you think. The Zhao family is different from the past. Zhao Wujin's cultivation has made a major breakthrough, and his cultivation technique has been cultivated to the large success stage. It's very likely that he will enter the top 5 in the 100 schools joint examination. You really shouldn't have come. Sometimes, taking a step back is the best way to calm the waves, Qian Chonghai said earnestly. Grandpa Qian, coming to the Scarlet Sun Star, is already taking a step back. 1 step back is fine, but 2 steps won't do. If you take any more steps back, you won't have the heart, energy, and spirit. Then, the one who defeats you won't be your opponent, but yourself. Li Daocheng's calm face still didn't show much emotion, but his words were filled with strong determination. Seeing Li Daocheng like this, Qian Changhai became even more worried. Just as he was about to say something, the Zhao family walked over. When Li Daocheng entered the venue, Zhao Wujin saw him. "Kid, did you have fun hiding for the past few months?" When Zhao Puyi saw that Li Daocheng was still alive, he was so angry that he gritted his teeth. When he thought of his grandson's tragic death, he wanted nothing more than to cut Li Daocheng into 1,000 pieces. Li Daocheng didn't even look at Zhao Puyi. He sat down cross-legged and openly meditated. "Playing dead? Then I'll let you play dead for a while. You killed my grandson. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, I'll find you and destroy you." The seed of hatred in Zhao Puyi's heart didn't weaken with the passage of time. Instead, it grew stronger. "Are you done talking?" Li Daocheng said indifferently. "Then," he said, "if you're done talking you can leave. I hate flies flying around my ears. It's very annoying." "You..." Zhao Puyi didn't expect Li Daocheng to actually dare to talk back and call him a fly. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. Chapter 236. After Zhao Puyi finished speaking, he left with the Zhao family in an aggressive manner. Yung Byung-ha watched Zhao Puyi leave with a lonely gaze. He did not even say a word to refute him. Qian Changhai saw that Yung Byung-ha's expression was abnormal and depressed. It was very different from his usual appearance. He could not help but ask, "Byung-ha, you don't look too good. Are you suffering from your old illness again?" Yung Byung-ha shook his head and sighed. "Changhai, I just received a letter from a student. The Ministry of Education attaches great importance to the joint complaint of many universities on planet Qiyang. They have already reached a preliminary agreement to withdraw Beiyang University. After this semester, Beiyang University will cease to exist." Qian Changhai's eyes twitched. He looked at his old friend guiltily and said, "Byung-ha, I've implicated you." Zheng Byung-ha waved his hand and said, "Why would I be implicated by you? The schools that filed the complaint are all from Planet Crimson Sunday. They have long been jealous of my 2 spots. It has nothing to do with you." Qian Changhai smiled bitterly. "If I hadn't come over and brought the Zhao family and the Zhan family to watch Beiyang, you would have no problem being the principal for a few more years. My arrival accelerated the demise of Beiyang University." Yung Byung-ha looked up to the sky and sighed. "What's the difference between a day earlier and a day later? I'm sorry, madam. I still couldn't protect Beiyang. I won't be able to meet you under the banyan tree in Beiyang's May Pond in my next life." Yung Byung-ha was old. At this time, tears were shining in his muddy eyes. He actually cried. The Beiyang students sitting at the back looked lonely. The conversation between the 2 old men just now was not concealed, so they had heard it clearly. Yung Byung-ha suddenly stood up and bowed deeply to more than 10 students. "Dear students, Principal Zheng is sorry." A few students quickly stood up to support Yung Byung-ha. "Principal Zheng, don't be like this. We can't afford to accept it. Principal Zheng, even if Beiyang is withdrawn, you can still open a training hall. When the time comes, we can still cultivate with you." "Yes, President Zheng. As long as you continue teaching, we will follow you. We will not go to other schools." Yung Byung-ha felt powerless. "Maybe I overestimated my ability from the beginning. If Beiyang University is abolished, the Ministry of Education will arrange for you to enter other cultivation colleges, which is actually a good thing for you. After all, the facilities of Beiyang University are too old, and there are no good teachers. People strive for greater heights. You can choose a college that suits you and complete your studies. If you become cultivators one day, President Zheng will personally hold a celebration for you." Hearing Yung Byung-ha's words, a few girls couldn't help but shed tears. Unlike the seating areas of other schools, Beiyang University's seating area was gloomy while the other schools were all excited. The main purpose of the joint examination was to motivate the students, so it was naturally lively and bustling. The education department of the 2 cultivation planets had prepared very generous prizes for every student who was about to take part in the joint examination of 100 schools. It was said that they were all spirit liquids, spirit medicines, and cultivation methods that were very helpful for cultivation. Half an hour later, everyone was present and the joint examination officially began. It was an official speech at the beginning. The 2 heads of education each gave a congratulatory speech, and then a host said some encouraging words. After that, it was time to give out the prizes, but the host changed the topic. Before the prizes are given out, Assistant Su Yuliang, the assistant of the Deputy Minister of Education, has an important announcement to make. Please, Assistant Su. Su Yuliang couldn't hide the radiance on his face. He walked up to the podium, picked up the spirit wheat, and looked at the quietest area of the venue. Beiyang University's rest area. The Ministry of Education has entrusted me to announce an important decision to everyone. Because the quality of teaching at Beiyang University has been deteriorating year by year, the loss of teachers is very serious. Students don't want to go, and teachers don't want to come, creating a vicious cycle. Not only that, in order to compete for students, Beiyang University even took in murderers. After a month of investigation, the evidence is conclusive and the facts are clear. Therefore, the Ministry of Education has made the following decision. Beiyang University's qualification to run a cultivation school will be revoked and the original site will be converted into a high school. It will be implemented next year. As soon as Su Yuliang spoke, the entire venue was in an uproar, but most of them were gloating. They all looked at the seating area of Beiyang University with a sneer. When he finished speaking, someone actually shouted, "Okay. This decision is too wise. It's too unfair to let Beiyang University occupy 2 spots for nothing. It's a blatant robbery for those capable students. None of the students cultivated by Beiyang University are presentable. They choose a general among dwarves, and they're still dwarves." There were disdainful discussions all around. As the saying goes, everyone kicks a man when he's down. It's fine if Beiyang University's teaching is bad, but they actually took in murderers. Isn't this harboring? That's right, President Jing is too bold. Isn't this openly challenging the Federation's cultivation method? Listening to the reactions below, Su Yuliang's face became even more smug. He looked at a young man with closed eyes behind the seats of Beiyang University. Naturally, it was Li Daochong. He sneered in his heart. Hee, this is what you get for being so arrogant. Weren't you very awesome back then? Now that your father and son are crippled and a murderer, let's see how you can still be arrogant. Zhao Pani sat in the VIP seats with a sinister smile. This mobilization was sponsored by the Zhao family, so the Zhao family's seats were the highest. In addition to the Zhao family, there were also a few students in the highest seat. They were Zhao Wujin, Chao Yanhui, Zhan Honglai, and Chen Yifeng. These 4 were the students who were most likely to get a good ranking in the 100 Schools Alliance exam. Naturally, they were highly valued by the education department and were treated as treasures. Young Byungha, you can file an appeal within 3 months. The education department will give you a chance to review. Do you want to appeal? Su Yuliang paused for a while before asking. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on Young Byungha. This old man with white hair seemed to have aged a little. Young Byungha sighed. No appeal. Su Yuliang nodded slightly. Since you're not going to appeal. Su Yuliang was interrupted by a cold voice just as he opened his mouth. I'll appeal. Everyone knew that the matter had been settled. They were all listening to Su Yuliang's good words. Suddenly, a voice sounded and everyone was stunned. Looking over, they saw a young man in a green martial arts suit standing up calmly in the seating area of Beiyang University and looking at Su Yuliang on the podium. It was Li Daochong. Everyone on the podium who had a grudge with Li Daochong looked at him with sinister eyes. This kid was about to die and he still didn't know it. How laughable. You're going to appeal? Who do you think you are? If I remember correctly, you're that murderer Li Daochong. We'll talk about your matter later. You'll suffer later. The Education Department has already ordered that you be handed over to the Security Bureau for investigation. A black sheep like you is a disgrace to the Cultivation Academy. If you refuse to admit your guilt, you'll be subjected to the soul-refining interrogation, Su Yuliang said sternly. The audience gasped. The soul-refining interrogation was the most severe form of interrogation. Not only did the subject have to endure the pain of having his soul refined, he would also have to reveal all his secrets. Even the details would be clearly stated. How many times he would fart when he pooped, who he had a crush on, what dirty thoughts he had, whether he had any thoughts of killing anyone. Chapter 237. While Su Yuliang was speaking, the Zhao family members looked at Li Daochong as if they were looking at a dead man. Who do you think you are? The Federation's cultivation law states that everyone has the right to appeal. Do you think you are above the cultivation law? Li Daochong glared at Su Yuliang. Li Daochong, don't be rash. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Tan Shuyuan anxiously whispered. Huang Jiaran was sitting beside Li Daochong. Her face turned red and white. After listening to Su Yuliang's words, was Li Daochong the murderer? But how could Brother Li be a murderer? Huang Yuelong, who was sitting in the VIP seats, was also shocked. He was very optimistic about Li Daochong. How did he suddenly become a murderer? Huang Yuelong immediately transmitted a message to Huang Jiaran, telling her to leave Li Daochong's side and not be implicated. Huang Jiaran acted as if she didn't hear it. She didn't believe that Brother Li would kill someone for no reason. Her delicate face revealed a determined expression. At this moment, Brother Li needed someone to accompany him. She wouldn't leave. Presumptuous Li Daochong, you have committed a crime and yet you are still so rude and unreasonable. You are simply lawless. Everyone here, look, this brat is still so stubborn. He refuses to admit that he killed my grandson in the competition. If this kind of student isn't a black sheep, then what is he? I request that this brat be expelled from the venue and locked up. After the mobilization meeting is over, we will conduct the soul-refining interrogation on him. Zhao Zhui stood up from his seat and pointed at Li Daochong as he angrily rebuked. Li Daochong, not to mention that you have committed a crime, your spirit vein is shattered. You are a cripple. What qualifications do you have to stand in the venue of the joint examination? Don't you know shame? Zhang Zhentian also stood up. Li Daochong, get out first. You don't have the right to be here. We'll talk about your appeal later, Yuan Longji said. The three of them spoke at the same time. Everyone looked at Li Daochong sympathetically. This brat really knew how to cause trouble. So many big shots were chasing him away. Even if he wanted to die, this was not the way to do it. According to the Department of Education's regulations, school leaders are allowed to bring in 20 students. Li Daochong was brought in by me. Who says he's not qualified? Qian Chonghai stood with his hands clasped behind his back and looked at the three people on the stage. Humph, as the dean, Qian Chonghai covered up a murderer. His crime is even worse. He's not qualified to be a school leader, so you don't have the right to bring anyone in. Zhao Pani was still holding a grudge against Qian Chonghai for stopping him from killing Li Daochong. Zhao Pani, you old bastard. You keep saying that Li Daochong did it in the dark, but you still don't have any evidence. Don't you know that slander is also a serious crime in the Federation? Qian Chonghai was annoyed. He pointed at Zhao Pani and scolded him. Old Qian, I respect you as an educator of the older generation. Don't lose your integrity in your later years. After Li Daochong committed the crime, you transferred his student status. Regardless of whether he killed Li Daochong or not, before this matter is settled, Li Daochong must stay on Blue Bay Star. His student status will be temporarily suspended or removed. If you're not covering up for him, then what are you? Su Yuliang's voice was calm, but every word he said struck at the heart. Li Daochong, not only do you not have the right to be here, you don't even have the right to enter the Cultivation Academy. I'm now revoking your student status. Please leave, Su Yuliang added. As the assistant to the Deputy Minister of Education, Su Yuliang did indeed have this authority. Arrest Li Daochong for me. He's nothing now. He's just a fugitive. Zhao Pani's voice was stern. As soon as his voice fell, several burly men who had been lying in ambush rushed out. Each of them was wearing an earth-ranked magic robe, and their cultivation was at the late stage of the Qi gathering. They were actually a group of bodyguards from a security company. Qian Chonghai was just about to protect Li Daochong when the chair behind him suddenly shook and turned into a shackle that firmly restrained Qian Chonghai. Yung Byungha was the same. The chair the two elders were sitting on was actually an immortal binding shackle. Even a Jin Dan stage cultivator could bind them, and they wouldn't be able to break free for a while. Li Daochong, run! Qian Chonghai shouted. Almost at the same time, voices telling Li Daochong to run came from several directions. Yi Feiyue, Orson, and Lu Ming all spoke. Some of them transmitted their voices, while others directly shouted. However, Li Daochong acted as if he didn't hear them. His eyes instantly turned cold, and he said indifferently, "If you don't want to lie in bed for the rest of your life, then don't come over." Several burly men who rushed up heard this and sneered. One of them sneered, "Stinky brat, you're about to die but you're still so stubborn. You're acting as if you're a Yuanian cultivator. I'm so scared." Saying that, that man was the first to rush in front of Li Daochong. He reached out his hand to grab Li Daochong's shoulder, trying to control Li Daochong. "Big brother Li, be careful," Huang Jiran warned with a pale face. "Okay." Li Daochong actually turned his face to reply to Huang Jiran. The moment their eyes met, Huang Jiran was stunned. Her heartbeat quickened and her face flushed red. She never thought that in such a dangerous situation, Li Daochong would still have the mind to say okay to her. Bang! A muffled sound. Li Daochong punched out, hitting that man's face. That man flew out like a cannonball. His body spun rapidly in the air. With a thud, he fell to the ground, no longer breathing. What? In an instant, the venue fell into a deathly silence. Except for Huang Yuelong and his daughter, the rest of the people were staring at Li Daochong in shock. Didn't they say that his spiritual root was shattered? How could a punch with a shattered spiritual root turn a cultivator in the middle stage of the Qi gathering realm into dog shit? Qian Chonghai, who was being controlled by the shackles, at this moment forgot to break free from the shackles. His expression froze as he looked at Li Daochong in disbelief. Yung Byungha's mouth was wide open. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The expression of the two elders was still within the acceptable range. The scene on the podium was even more exciting. The eyes of the Zhao family members almost fell to the ground. Zhao Shi was like a stone statue. He was very clear about how heavy the palm that he had hit Li Daochong was. Zhang Jintian was shocked. His eyes were filled with suspicion. Something must have happened to Li Daochong. Thinking about how Li Daochong's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, now that his spiritual root was shattered, he could still throw out such a terrifying punch. If someone said that Li Daochong did not have any secrets, Zhang Jintian would definitely not believe it. Could it be that this kid ate some kind of treasure? Or could it be that he cultivated some kind of ancient cultivation method? Or could it be that he obtained some kind of true spirit-grade magic weapon? The teacup in Zhao Wujin's hand was crushed into pieces. After not seeing him for a few months, Li Daochong's cultivation not only did not deteriorate because of his spiritual root, but also advanced by leaps and bounds. With just one punch, He was able to knock out a cultivator in the middle stage of the qi-gathering realm. Even he, Zhao Wujin, may not be able to do it. Zhao Wujin's eyes flashed with a trace of killing intent. This kid could not be left alive, otherwise the Zhao family would never have peace. The enmity between them had already been formed. Zhao Wujin did not believe that Li Daochong would let it go. One day, when his cultivation was strong enough to deal with the Zhao family, it would be the end of the Zhao family. Zhao Wujin was timid, but Zhang Honglai was even more frightened. After he had taken Qiu Xiong's pill, he should have been stuck in the early stage of the qi-gathering realm. He should not have been able to advance even a little bit. But Qiu Xiong had found him after the tournament and gave him another pill, as well as a nameless cultivation method. Zhang Honglai did not expect that his cultivation could still advance. Moreover, without any bottlenecks, in just a few months he reached the late stage of the qi-gathering realm. However, Zhang Honglia's body had some strange changes. For example, scales began to grow on his buttocks, and his toenails turned black. Later, Zhang Honglai came to know that he was cultivating a devil technique. At first, he was worried that he would be discovered. In the Federation, cultivating a devil technique was forbidden. Later, Qiu Xiong told him that if he only cultivated the first 4 layers, he would not be discovered. This devil technique was passed down from the first devil sect, the Yiksha sect, and only the sect master could cultivate it. When cultivating the first 4 layers of this devil technique, the devil qi in the body would not be emitted. Moreover, under Yuanying, no one would be able to detect it. After cultivating the first 4 layers to perfection, Zhang Honglai could at least reach the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Zhang Honglai, who thought that he had no hope of reaching the foundation establishment realm in his life, was naturally ecstatic. Regardless of whether it was a devil technique or not, he cultivated even more diligently. Zhang Honglai thought that with this devil technique, even Zhao Wujin's cultivation speed would not be comparable to his. As for Li Daochong, whose spiritual root was shattered, Zhang Honglai completely did not put him in his eyes. However, at this moment, Zhang Honglia's body could not help but tremble. His eyes revealed a look of disbelief. Impossible, absolutely impossible, Li Daochong, who do you think you are? How can you compare to me, Zhang Honglai? It must be an illusion, ha ha ha. Chapter 238. Li Daochong's punch shocked everyone. The other burly men were too fierce and couldn't stop themselves. They rushed forward one after another, but in their hearts they wanted to escape. But they couldn't escape. Li Daochong's aura suddenly burst out at this moment. The majestic and thick spirit energy set off a gust of wind, pushing the students of Beiyang University away. Huang Jiaran was the one who was pushed the furthest. The chair she was sitting on seemed to have turned into a flying shuttle, sending her more than 10 meters away. Bang bang bang, there was a series of muffled sounds. Every time there was a burly man's figure flying through the air. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 burly men had all fainted more than 10 meters away from Li Daochong. They fell motionless after landing. Ha ha ha, die, 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 Li Daochong, I want you to die. A voice that did not sound like a human's, yet was somewhat familiar, wild laughter rang out. Li Daochong turned his head to look. A layer of black scales appeared on Zhang Honglia's face at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zhang Zhentian was shocked. He wanted to stop Zhang Honglai, but it was too late. Qiu Xiong didn't have good intentions from the beginning. It was easy to practice demonic arts, but difficult to control one's inner demons. Once it was practiced, one had to control the inner demons at all times. If one lost control, they would be doomed eternally. In Qiu Xiong's eyes, Zhang Honglai and the Zhang family were just pawns that could be discarded at any time. Zhang Honglia's demonic energy surged out like a tide. He completely lost his zombie mind and jumped up from his seat, rushing madly towards Li Daochong. Practicing demonic arts is a violation of the cultivation method. You deserve death. Li Daochong was worried that he didn't have a valid reason to kill Zhang Honglai. He said word by word and stretched out his hand. Song ink was already in his hand. Zhang Zhentian was shocked. Li Daochong, have mercy. Whoosh! A black light flashed past, bringing with it a trace of the power of fire. Before Zhang Honglai could reach Li Daochong, he fell from the air and landed on the ground. His eyes bulged. This blade didn't have a strong destructive power, nor did it cut Zhang Honglai into pieces. It was just a trace of blade light on Zhang Honglia's body. Demonic energy was most afraid of yang fire, which was a type of yang fire. Zhang Zhentian saw that his son didn't seem to be dead. Zhang Honglai instantly stood up from the ground. He looked at Li Daochong with bloodthirsty eyes and was about to charge at him again. Bang! Zhang Honglai had just taken a step forward when his shoulder exploded without warning. Another sound, his right leg. Bang 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 bang. Then, Zhang Honglia's body exploded all over. Not long after, his face was beyond recognition. He had turned into a pile of rotten meat before he could even use his demonic arts. Many girls covered their faces, not daring to look. Zhang Honglia's death was too gory. Li Daochong put away the Tsang ink and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at Zhang Zhentian, who was filled with hatred, and said, "Your son cultivates demonic arts, so I'll execute him on the spot. You don't have any objections, right?" Zhang Zhentian's blood and qi churned in his chest as he spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, in addition to hatred, he also felt regret. If he had known that Li Daochong was so abnormal, he would never have clashed with Li Daochong. But it was too late now. It was all his fault for having such a disappointing son. If Zhang Honglai could be half as calm as his father, he wouldn't have ended up in such a state where he didn't even have a complete corpse. As a person, it was important to know one's own limit. One should not provoke people they should not provoke, or else they would have to pay a price they could not bear. Zhang Zhentian spat out a mouthful of blood and sat back down in his chair. His face was filled with fatigue. Good kill. This unfilial son actually cultivated demonic arts behind my back. He deserved to die. Zhang Zhentian clenched his teeth and said against his will. Zhang Honglia's cultivation of demonic arts was a fact that could not be denied. The Federation's laws stated that anyone who cultivated demonic arts had the right to be killed. People who cultivated demonic arts were no different from dark ghosts. They were even harder to guard against than dark ghosts. Without cultivation deviation, they were no different from ordinary people and had a clear consciousness. However, once cultivation deviation occurred, they would lose their rationality and kill people randomly. This child cannot be left alive. Killing intent flashed in Zhao Pu's eyes. After not seeing Li Daochong for a few months, not only did his spirit root not shatter, but his strength also increased so rapidly. The Zhao family was terrified. If Li Daochong was given a few more months, the Zhao family would be unstoppable. Zhao Wujin was already a prodigy, but compared to Li Daochong in front of him now, he was simply a joke. The Zhao family's second elder whispered, "Great Elder, should we make a prompt decision and kill this kid in the midst of the chaos? If we continue to let him live, I'm afraid he will become a big problem in the future." On the other side of the podium, the students of Vast Heaven University all looked at Li Daochong with their mouths wide open. Orson curled his lips and held his head with both hands. This kid's fists are getting more and more powerful. Damn it, I am no longer his opponent. Lu Ming's cheeks were dripping with sweat as he unwillingly said, "Damn it, we have already been left far behind by him." Yi Feiyue's delicate little face was frozen with an extremely shocked expression. She covered her mouth with her hand, her beautiful eyes were wide open, and her nose was slightly trembling. Just what had this kid experienced? When she first met him, he was just a poor boy peddling in the night market. After half a year, he had already become someone that everyone looked up to. Yuan Longji's old face kept twitching, and his heart was filled with an indescribable bitterness. How could he have thought that Li Daocheng's growth would be so fast? Yuan Longji had placed all his bets on Zhao Wujin. Previously, even though Li Daocheng had shown an unparalleled talent, in his opinion, Zhao Wujin was better. But now, it seemed that not only had he misjudged, but he had also caused vast Heaven University to lose a once-in-a-century monstrous genius. Yuan Longji regretted it, but Yu Boming was even more heartbroken. His pair of small eyes were filled with anger as he glared at the Zhao family. Damn it, he was very optimistic about Li Daocheng in the last hegemony tournament and had already confirmed him as a key training target. But those idiots from the Zhao family interfered and said that Zhao Tansheng's death was caused by Li Daocheng. But after a few months of investigation, several experts were invited to conduct an autopsy, and the conclusion was still unclear. Other than the cause of death, there was no way to confirm that Li Daocheng was the culprit. Just based on a guess, they wanted to fight Li Daocheng to the death, and even dragged him into the water. Damn it, this father's dream of being promoted was completely ruined. Who will compensate me? Yu Boming was heartbroken, and his face was constantly changing. The face of the principal of Beiyang University, who had jointly appealed to Scarlet Sun Star, was very ugly. They were shocked, but they thought more about the fact that this young man was a student of Beiyang University. If the Ministry of Education re-examined the teaching quality of Beiyang University and found that Beiyang University had cultivated such a powerful student, then the previous decision to revoke Beiyang University would definitely be retracted. This kind of thing must never happen. Several principals turned their eyes to the principal of Scarlet Sun University, Pei Daolong, at the same time. He was one of the leaders of this joint appeal, and the other was Su Yuliang. Su Yuliang was looking at Li Daocheng with a gloomy face at this moment. His eyes kept darting around, and he was thinking of countermeasures. If Li Daocheng's spirit root was shattered and he was a cripple, he could deal with him however he wanted. However, the situation had changed drastically. Li Daocheng's spirit root was not shattered. Not only was he not a cripple, but his cultivation and strength could be ranked among the top in the entire fourth ring star zone. The remaining three people behind Su Yuliang, Chen Yifeng, Chao Yanhui, and Zhao Wujin were already outstanding enough, but compared to Li Daocheng, they seemed to be inferior. Zhan Honglai, that kid, had recently advanced by leaps and bounds. Su Yuliang thought that Zhan Honglai would become the next combat sword, but he did not expect that Zhan Honglai would cultivate demonic skills. But no matter what, Zhan Honglai was still very powerful. He had sparred with Zhao Wujin a month ago, and Zhan Honglai had managed to take 10 of Zhao Wujin's moves. Considering that Zhan Honglia's cultivation was one level lower than Zhao Wujin's, it was already not bad. However, Zhan Honglai could not even take one move from Li Daocheng and died without a complete corpse. Didn't that mean that Li Daocheng's strength was above Zhao Wujin's? How was this possible? A few months ago, this kid was nothing. Su Yuliang's heart was like 15 buckets of water being drawn. Li Daocheng stood in place with his hands clasped behind his back. He ignored all the gazes directed at him and stared coldly at Zhao Piaoi. He said indifferently, "Zhao Piaoi, you old bastard. A few months ago, you tried to kill me based on a mere guess. As a mighty foundation establishment cultivator, you actually dared to launch a sneak attack on a qi condensation disciple from behind. I only have one question for you right now. Does your Zhao family have conclusive evidence that Zhao Tansheng died from my telekinesis attack?" Zhao Pui's face twitched. His old face was extremely ugly. Being called an old fart by a young kid in front of everyone, his lungs were about to explode. Chapter 239. The moment Li Daocheng's words left his mouth, everyone was shocked. This kid is too conceited. He's young and hot-blooded. He won't even know what's going on when he suffers. He thinks he can challenge a foundation establishment cultivator just because he defeated a few qi-gathering cultivators. Mocking voices rose and fell again, most of them coming from Blue Bay Star's students and lecturers. Zhao Puyi was a veteran Foundation establishment cultivator on Blue Bay Star. Although his cultivation hadn't improved since he entered the Foundation establishment stage, he was still in the early stage. But after 30 years of accumulation, Zhao Puyi's foundation was solid, his spirit energy was vigorous, and his spirit placenta was as stable as a dog, almost turning into jade. He was on a completely different level from a cultivator who had just entered the Foundation establishment stage. His strength was much higher. Normal cultivators in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage would have to weigh their own weight in front of Zhao Puyi and wouldn't easily provoke him. Li Daochong, who was clearly only at the peak of the qi gathering stage, actually challenged Zhao Puyi. On the surface, it seemed like there was only a difference of one level between the peak of the qi gathering stage and the early stage of the Foundation establishment stage. But this wasn't a small level, it was a qualitative change. Successful Foundation establishment meant that one was a cultivator. Below the Foundation establishment stage, no matter how strong you were just a cultivator and couldn't be called a cultivator. Zhao Puyi was stunned for a moment when he heard Li Daochong's words. Then, a sinister smile appeared on his old face. If you want to die, don't blame me. The Zhao family had been worrying about how to destroy Li Daochong. They didn't expect that this kid would actually challenge them in public, giving the Zhao family the perfect opportunity to destroy him. Young people were really too impulsive. If Li Daochong hadn't challenged them, the Zhao family really couldn't think of any excuse to kill this kid in front of so many people. Li Daochong, as you wish, this old man will fight you regardless of life or death. Do you dare? Zhao Puyi said in a low voice. Sure, come. Li Daochong's eyes flashed with killing intent. In fact, Zhao Puyi's palm strike had almost taken Li Daochong's life. If he didn't take revenge, Li Daochong wouldn't be able to convince himself otherwise. Moreover, the Zhao family wouldn't let him go. Li Daochong didn't have to be polite to this kind of vicious dog who wouldn't let him go. During the tournament, Li Daochong did not have the strength to go head-to-head with the Zhao clan, so he chose to hide. Where there was life, there was hope. He was waiting for the day when he grew up, and then he would come back to settle the score. Zhao Puyi rose from the ground and into the air. There was a flying sword under his feet that emitted a dazzling silver light. The silver snake sword was Zhao Puyi's natal magic treasure, a low-grade heaven-rank magic treasure. One was in the air and the other was on the ground. Even if one were to use their toes to think, they would know who would have the advantage. Their position in the air was three-dimensional, flexible, and faster. Regardless of whether they were attacking or defending, they would have the upper hand. The ground was just a flat surface, so the speed was slow and the field of vision was small. Cultivators were high-level creatures who stood in the four-dimensional space and looked down on the three-dimensional beings. Just based on this point, Li Daochong was completely at a disadvantage. In everyone's opinion, Li Daochong would lose miserably. Lu Ming rubbed his chin. Based on my understanding of this kid, he wouldn't be so impulsive. Could it be that he has some trump card? Orson took out an apple and nibbled on it. With a face full of interest, he said, "We'll know when we see." At the edge of the venue, Huang Yuelong stood beside Huang Jiran. Just now, he was worried that his daughter would be affected if she stayed alone, so he went down from the podium to protect her. Huang Jiran worriedly looked at Zhao Puyi, who was flying in the air, and said to her father, "Dad, quickly think of a way to help Big Brother Li. No matter how strong he is, how can he be a match for a cultivator?" Huang Yuelong bitterly smiled. "Help? How can I help? Do you think your father is a Jin Dan cultivator?" Qian Chonghai, who was firmly restrained by the shackles, glared at Li Daochong. "Kid, don't make trouble. You've already made a beautiful comeback. Why are you jumping into the fire pit again? Are you looking to die by challenging Zhao Puyi?" Li Daochong's face fell. "Grandpa Qian, you have to have confidence in me. Qian Changhai spat, confidence my ass. Do you think foundation establishment cultivators are just for show? Let me put it this way. Before foundation establishment, no matter how strong you are, you're still a mortal. At most, you're a martial arts master. After foundation establishment, you're a cultivator. No longer a mortal, you're an immortal. Do you understand? Before foundation establishment, you're a mortal. Do you think a mortal can defeat an immortal? Li Daochong grinned. If I don't try, how will I know? Qian Changhai was stunned for a moment. Flustered and exasperated, he said, Were you playing house? How would you try? Using your life to try? Huang Jiran suddenly ran over and grabbed Li Daochong. Brotherly, stop fighting. You haven't reached foundation establishment yet. How can you beat him? Come with me. My dad said he can protect you. Li Daochong pushed Huang Jiran's hand away and patted her head, smiling faintly. Thank you, but there's no need. I'll solve my own problems. Stand back and watch. Watch how your brother Li shoots down an old bird from the sky. Huang Jiran's beautiful face revealed a stunned expression. Before she could react, a gentle force suddenly rose up and pushed her away. She landed where she came from. Director Yu, is Blue Bay Star full of brainless boars? That kid's strength is not bad. He can be ranked in the top 5 on Planet Crimson Sunday. Unfortunately, he's all brawn and no brains. No matter how talented he is, he'll die early. Director Zhou Shuming shook his head. Yu Boming did not reply. His anxious mood had calmed down after Li Daochong challenged Zhao Pani. Since things had already come to this point, there was no point in regretting it. He had not protected Li Daochong back then. This kid must have held a grudge against him. They would never be on the same side. Since he could not be used by him, he could not let others take advantage of him. Yu Boming's eyes flashed. He hoped that Zhao Pani would kill Li Daochong. No one was optimistic about Li Daochong's chances. They only felt that this guy was throwing an egg at a rock and was seeking his own death. Zhao Pani looked down at Li Daochong from the sky and said coldly, Little brat, are you ready? All right, I'll let you make the first move. I don't want people to say that I'm bullying the weak in the future. Li Daochong looked up at Zhao Pani with a smile that was not a smile. Deference is no substitute for obedience. Before he finished speaking, Li Daochong's hand shook. 3 rays of light flashed and shot towards Zhao Pani in the sky. Spirit talismans. The corner of Zhao Pani's mouth rose. He did not care about the spirit talismans flying towards him. How could mere low-level spirit talismans hurt him? Zhao Pani opened his palm and a round energy shield made of earthy yellow spirit energy appeared. Bang bang! The spirit talismans exploded when they hit the round shield. However, there were only 2 explosions. Zhao Pani was puzzled. He clearly saw Li Daochong shoot out 3 spirit talismans. Suddenly, Zhao Pani felt a chill run down his spine. Another spirit talisman had flown behind him at some point. Insignificant skill. Zhao Pani snorted and waved his hand. Bang! The spirit talisman seemed to have been hit by something and exploded in the air a few meters away from Zhao Pani. Kid, do you think a mere spirit talisman can hurt me? Zhao Pani looked at Li Daochong with contempt and continued, Today, I'll let you see why only foundation establishment cultivators can be called cultivators. As he spoke, a black cat made of folded black paper appeared in Zhao Pani's hand. Spirit energy flowed and he gently tossed it. The black paper cat quickly enlarged and turned into a black tiger in the blink of an eye. Awo! A roar resounded through the sky. The black tiger jumped down from the sky and pounced towards Li Daochong. Li Daochong sniffed. As he expected, level 7 spirit talismans were no threat to cultivators like Zhao Pani. Level 7 spirit talismans could only deal with cultivators below the foundation establishment realm and powerful ghosts below the malicious ghost realm. Only level 8 spirit talismans could cause harm to foundation establishment cultivators. It seemed that the production of level 8 spirit talismans had to be put on the agenda. Li Daochong stopped thinking and raised his head to look at the black tiger pouncing towards him. His eyes flashed and he disappeared from where he stood. The black tiger pounced on empty air. After landing, it looked around, but there was no sign of its target. The scattered students in the venue were all surprised because no one saw Li Daochong's figure. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. In the air, Zhao Pani was disdainful. In front of this old man, illusions are useless. As he spoke, Zhao Pani pointed. The black tiger immediately turned its head and found its target above. In that instant, Li Daochong jumped high into the air. However, his speed was too fast for the naked eye to see. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. Li Daochong looked at the black tiger curiously. He had long heard that cultivators could use magic, but he had never seen it. This was the first time he had seen a magic attack. The black tiger was clearly formed from black paper, but it looked no different from a real tiger. It was just that there was a faint layer of qi around its body, making it look a little unreal. When the black tiger saw Li Daochong, it leaped and pounced again. Whoosh! Li Daochong shot out another spirit talisman. Boom! The black tiger was blown away by the spirit talisman. Zhao Pani's expression froze. He didn't expect that the black tiger transformation technique he was so proud of would be so easily broken by Li Daochong. Zhao Pani stretched out his hand and a small stone appeared in his palm. He threw it lightly. With a whoosh, the stone instantly grew to the size of a head and smashed towards Li Daochong. Zhao Pani is clearly toying with Li Daochong. He's bullying him because he can't attack him while he's floating in the air. Huang Yuelong shook his head. At this height, let alone big brother Li, even I can jump and touch him. Dad, why do you say he can't attack? Huang Jiaran was puzzled. Jumping and flying are different. After jumping, you lose control of your body and can't adjust your body. You can only attack once. If you miss, you'll become a target. Li Daochong isn't that stupid. Only by flying can he do whatever he wants in the air. He can't attack Zhao Pani whenever he wants, Huang Yuelong analyzed. Chapter 240. Huang Yuelong's analysis is not without reason. But does Li Daochong really not dare to attack Zhao Pani who is floating in the air? Of course not. Li Daochong has been probing. The falling stones are of no threat to Li Daochong. He punches them one by one. Zhao Pani actually does not have a lot of moves. The spells he can use in the early stage of foundation establishment are very limited and not very powerful. Seeing no effect, Zhao Pani's old face is a bit embarrassed. He is a veteran foundation establishment cultivator, but he can't do anything to a brat. If this gets out, he will become a joke. Zhao Pani's expression changes. Killing intent appears in his eyes. He waves his hand. The silver snake flying sword under his feet shoots out. Without the flying sword to support him, Zhao Pani is still floating in the air, but he looks a bit strained. With Zhao Pani's cultivation level, he is still a bit lacking to fly. He can only barely float in the air. Zhao Pani is not good at close combat. He directly attacked Li Daochong in the tournament because Li Daochong was only Qi training stage at that time. As a foundation establishment cultivator, even if Zhao Pani is not good at close combat, he can still crush Qi training stage cultivators. But now, Zhao Pani does not dare to get close to Li Daochong. The close combat of a Qi gathering peak stage cultivator is already enough to threaten a foundation establishment cultivator. The silver snake flying sword shoots out like lightning. Li Daochong's pupils constricts. Without hesitation, Song ink appears in his hand. He raises his saber to block. Clang! A crisp sound. Li Daochong's hand is slightly numb. He takes 3 small steps back. The silver snake flying sword is sent flying by Li Daochong, but the flying sword is not a human. Even if it is sent flying, it is like a boomerang, instantly flying again. Li Daochong again raises his saber to block, clang, another crisp sound. Li Daochong takes another 3 steps back. The silver snake flying sword flies back again. For a moment, Li Daochong is in an extremely passive position. Zhao Puyi is getting serious. Li Daochong will be defeated very soon. Huang Yuelong naturally stood on Li Daochong's side, but he had to admit that Li Daochong was no match for Zhao Pani. After repeating this for more than 10 times, Li Daochong was forced into a corner by the flying sword. It seemed that he would not be able to hold on any longer. When the silver snake flying sword once again flew towards Li Daochong at an even faster speed, several streaks of light flashed past his hands. Li Daochong took out the remaining 5 level 7 talismans. Brat, I already told you that this talisman is useless against me. Zhao Puyi stretched out his hand and a round energy shield appeared. 9 split saber technique, 4th stage, heaven-breaking slash. Li Daochong looked at the flying sword that was shooting towards him again. He whispered, and the spiritual energy in his body gathered on his arm. Song Ink's blade buzzed. Zing! The blade flashed. Clang! The silver snake flying sword was sent flying. This time, Li Daochong used his saber technique. He did not simply wave his saber to block. The silver snake flying sword was sent flying and stabbed into the wall. The entire sword was almost buried in the wall. What? Zhao Puyi cried out in disbelief. The silver snake flying sword that he was most proud of was actually sent flying by Li Daochong. What kind of monstrous strength was this? Zhao Puyi did not have time to think. Several streaks of light had already shot towards him. Bang bang, 2 explosions sounded. The round energy shield in Zhao Puyi's hand cracked. The 3 streaks of light behind it actually merged together. The 3 streaks of light merged together. Boom! With a loud sound, Zhao Puyi was sent flying. He crashed into the training hall's roof, which was dozens of meters high. After rebounding, he smashed into the ground. Zhao Puyi adjusted his body before he hit the ground. At least he did not smash into the ground. He landed somewhat pathetically. However, as soon as he landed, a figure rushed towards him. Zhao Puyi was shocked. He raised his hand to block, but it was too late. Bang! With a muffled sound, his old face took a solid punch. Zhao Puyi was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. His body streaked through the air. Before he hit the wall, Li Daochong had already appeared behind him. Another punch. Bang! With another bang, it landed on Zhao Puyi's waist. What? Zhao Puyi opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying in another direction. Similarly, Li Daochong did not allow Zhao Puyi to land. In an instant, he appeared in Zhao Puyi's path and punched again. Zhao Puyi was like a rubber ball. He was hit 3 times by Li Daochong. It seemed that he would not be able to last much longer. At this moment, the training hall was silent. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched Li Daochong beat up the foundation establishment Zhao Puyi. What was wrong with this world? A chi-gathering stage cultivator could beat up a foundation establishment stage cultivator? Dad, I'm not dreaming, right? Huang Jiran rubbed her eyes. She felt that this was too unreal. I don't think so. Huang Yuelong knew that Li Daochong was strong, but he did not know that he was this strong. Was this still a freaking human? How could he win with a difference of an entire stage? Huang Yuelong felt that his common sense was being overturned. It was not only the Huang father and daughter who had this thought. Everyone present had the same thought. Even the Zhao family members had the same thought. They were so stunned that the Zhao family members did not immediately react. Only after Li Daochong's 3rd attack did the Zhao family's 2nd elder shout, "Stop!" However, Li Daochong did not seem to hear him. After the 4th attack, Zhao Puyi's body, which was bouncing around in the air, had already stopped moving. The Zhao family members could no longer sit still. Li Daochong was clearly going to beat Zhao Puyi to death. The 2nd elder was the first to charge forward, followed by the rest of the Zhao family members. Zhao Wujin had already wanted to make a move, so he was one step faster than the second elder. Li Daochong was just about to give Zhao Puyi a fifth punch when a cold wind blew behind him. He immediately gave up on the fifth punch and turned around to punch back. Boom! The two fists collided. It was Zhao Wujin. The two fists collided and both of them were pushed back. Li Daochong had not yet steadied himself when the Zhao family's second elder chopped down with his saber. On the other side, a Zhao family member swiftly slashed at Li Daochong's lower body. With so many people surrounding him, Li Daochong was a bit overwhelmed. In addition, he had expended a lot of energy fighting Zhao Puyi, so he was forced to retreat. There were more than 10 people from the Zhao family, and all of them swarmed up to beat up Li Daochong. Qian Changhai cursed, "Surnamed Zhao, you bastards. Didn't Zhao Puyi say that he would not stop until he was dead? What are you doing?" At this time, the Zhao family no longer cared about their fate. The great elder Zhao Puyi could not die. He was one of the most important people in the Zhao family. Li Daochong was inexplicably beaten up. His heart burned with anger and he cursed, "Zhao Wujin, you bastard, your Zhao family is going back on your words. Your words are like farts." Zhao Wujin sneered, "Li Daochong, there is no need to talk about morality with people like you." Li Daochong gnashed his teeth. Zhao Wujin actually dared to act shamelessly. There were more than 10 people in the Zhao family. One Zhao Wujin was enough to deal with Li Daochong. There was also a foundation establishment cultivator and more than 10 qi gathering intermediate stage experts. No matter how strong Li Daochong was, he could not resist and was forced to retreat. If not for the fact that his Tsang ink had been upgraded to the heaven stage and had the ability to melt fire, Li Daochong would have been defeated. Seeing that he could not hold on any longer, Li Daochong decided to go all out. He wanted to use the later stages of the 9-split saber technique to break out of the encirclement. "All of you stop!" At this time, a shout came from the podium. The person who shouted was the Scarlet Sun Planet's Director of Education, Zhou Shuming. He had just received news that the Northwest Military Division's division commander, Qin Zhan, had arrived at Scarlet Sun City's harbor in half an hour. He then took a military shuttle to Scarlet Sun University. According to the time, he would arrive here soon. The person who sent the message to Zhou Shuming was Scarlet Sun City's mayor, Chun Yun, who was also Chen Yifeng's father. When Zhou Shuming heard that Qin Zhan was coming to Scarlet Sun University, he immediately shuddered. This hardline military figure had a lot of military achievements. He was in charge of 100,000 Northwest Military Division troops. This time, he was even the invigilator. Chapter 241. Zhou Shuming did not want to get involved in the dispute between the Zhao family and Li Daochong. After all, it was not within his jurisdiction. Zhou Shuming did not care about it. This was supposed to be Yu Boming's problem. However, now that Qin Zhan had come to Chiang City and Chiang University, Zhou Shuming had no choice but to stand up for him. If Qin Zhan came and saw that a joint examination mobilization meeting had turned into a brawl in Chiang University, the #1 university on planet Chiang, Zhou Shuming would no longer be Zhou Shuming's director. Zhou Shuming didn't need to be the head of the Department of Education anymore. Even he didn't believe that Qin Zhan wouldn't fire him on the spot. In order to protect his position, Zhou Shuming had no choice but to shout. Zhou Shuming was a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator after all. His voice carried the qi of true spirit, causing everyone's eardrums to buzz. After all, this was someone else's territory. The Zhao family did not dare to cross the line. When they heard Zhou Shuming's words, they immediately stopped. Zhou Shuming's face darkened as he said, "All of you listen up. If anyone dares to fight again, don't blame me for being rude. Today's mobilization meeting is to encourage the students participating in the joint examination, not to settle your grudges. All of you, return to your seats." lecturers of Qiyang University, worked together to rearrange the venue. As soon as Zhou Shuming finished speaking, more than 10 lecturers began to clean up the battlefield. The places that should be repaired were repaired, and the places that should be cleaned were cleaned up. In a short while, the messy venue was cleaned up and restored to its original state. Zhou Shuming immediately announced, "From now on, everyone better behave. In 10 minutes, Division Commander Qin Zhan will personally come to Qiyang University for an inspection. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Qin Zhan is an important member of the military and has great power. He is not someone a small place like ours can provoke. He can crush you into pieces with one finger and crush you into powder." When they heard that Qin Zhan was coming, the venue was suddenly in an uproar. The eyes of the students lit up. Qin Zhan was their hero. 2 years ago, if Qin Zhan had not led 30,000 cultivators to defend the northwest border for 3 months, the Federation's 9-ring star zone would have ceased to exist. 2 years ago, for some unknown reason, Hades suddenly mobilized a large number of Soul Eaters to attack the northwestern border, attempting to break through the checkpoint there and enter the Federation's territory en masse. Because the attack was very sudden, the self-cultivators did not have time to react. They were caught off guard and suffered heavy casualties. Seeing that the northwest border was about to be breached, Qin Zhan led the only 30,000 cultivators under his command and blocked the advance of the army of Soul Eaters with their bodies. They resisted for 3 months. In the end, only less than 10,000 of the 30,000 self-cultivators were left. They had completed the impossible mission. It could be said that the Federation was still able to maintain its current level thanks to Qin Zhan. Otherwise, the Federation's 9 and 8-ring star zones would no longer exist. Zhou Shuming did not know if such a big shot had come to the Scarlet Sun planet on a whim, or if he had something important to do. However, no matter what, he still had to do his job properly. If he left a good impression on Qin Zhan, his career would be brighter in the future. The military was the real power in the Federation. Zhou Shuming had been in the bureaucracy for so many years, so he naturally knew this very well. Everything was ready. Zhou Shuming scanned the venue and felt that it was not very pleasing to the eye. In the end, his gaze landed on the group of people from Beiyang University. No matter how he looked at them, they were an eyesore, especially that brat Li Daochong. He seemed to be very vicious. Just now, this brat had caused a huge ruckus in the venue. He had even killed someone. Although he was a demonic cultivator, he was still tainted with blood. What kind of person was Qin Zhan? It was impossible for him to not notice the clues. If he were to ask, Zhou Shuming would not be able to answer. What had happened at the venue today must not be known by this big shot. Otherwise, Zhou Shuming would definitely not be able to keep his position. Zhou Shuming was not the only one who thought this way. Yu Boming also thought the same. The two of them exchanged glances. At this moment, the second elder of the Zhao family, Zhao Puzuan, walked up to Zhou Shuming and whispered, "Director Zhou, one of our ancestors is now working under Qin Zhan. He is a deputy commander. I just received news that he came with Master Qin this time." Zhou Shuming narrowed his eyes and said in surprise, "Oh, your Zhao family actually has such a powerful person." The ancestor that Zhao Puzuan mentioned was the mysterious person who had been separated from the branch of the Zhao family. The Zhao family had contacted him several months ago and invited him to return to the Zhao family to be their ancestor. Every year, they would offer a large amount of cultivation resources and money. That ancestor happened to be about to retire. At the same time, he also wanted to return to his root. He had already promised the Zhao family that he would return to the Zhao family after retiring. When the Zhao family heard that Qin Zhan was coming, they were all excited. They looked at Li Daochong as if they were looking at a dead man. At this moment, Zhao Puzuan was on the verge of death. He had already been carried to a room backstage. Fortunately, his cultivation was deep. After taking 4 heavy punches from Li Daochong, he would not die. When he heard that Qin Zhan was here, he drank a few bottles of high-grade spirit liquid and took the Zhao family's secret spirit recovery pill. Zhao Putsuan had recovered more than half. Enduring his internal injuries, Zhao Putsuan came to the front desk. No matter what, he wanted to see the Zhao family's ancestor who had left decades ago. Director Zhou, what right do those guys from Beiyang University have to meet Master Qin? Aren't they smearing the reputation of Qiyang Planet? Zhao Putsuan coughed a few times and said. As soon as Zhao Putsuan said that, the students of Beiyang University all looked angry. Zhou Shuming and Yu Boming discussed in a low voice. Then, the former raised his head and said, President Jing, the situation is special this time. Your Beiyang University is about to be abolished. It's not convenient to meet Master Qin. Before he comes, please take your students and leave first. Yong Byungha's face turned green and white. No one would feel good if they were chased away in public. Qian Chonghai stood up with his hands behind his back and snorted. Bingha, let's go. Huang Jiran saw that Beiyang University was leaving and Li Daochong was following them. She immediately begged Huang Yuelong, Dad, say something. Tell them not to leave. Huang Yuelong smiled bitterly. I don't have the right to speak. Zhou Shuming is your uncle's immediate superior. What right do I have to stay the people he wants to chase away? Huang Jiran stomped her feet and pouted. Then I'll leave too. With that, Huang Jiran followed the group from Beiyang University and was about to leave. Zhou Shuming said again, President Jing, please go through the back door. Master Qin is about to arrive. It's not convenient for you to go through the front door. Humiliation. Blatant humiliation. The dozen or so students from Beiyang University gritted their teeth, but there was nothing they could do. They only hated themselves for not having the ability and strength to humiliate Beiyang. If all of them had the strength of Li Daochong, no one would dare to look down on Beiyang today. However, they did not have the strength of Li Daochong after all, so they could only swallow their anger. Yong Byungha was also angry, but Zhou Shuming was his leader. If his leader asked him to leave, he had no choice but to leave. Yong Byungha did not say a word. Only loneliness and helplessness appeared on his old face. He turned and walked towards the back door of the venue. Almost at the same time as the group from Beiyang University walked out of the back door, the main door was pushed open. A few young sergeants in the uniform of the cultivation army walked in first. In the middle was Qin Zhan, Master Qin. There was a large group of people behind him. Almost all the local officials of Qiyang City were here. Mayor Chen Yun walked beside Qin Zhan with a fawning face. He kept talking to Qin Zhan, trying to curry favor with him. He wanted nothing more than to kneel down and kowtow to Qin Zhan and call him Grandpa. When Qin Zhan entered the venue, Zhou Shuming and Yu Boming immediately went up to him and wanted to shake hands with him. However, Qin Zhan did not seem to see them and walked past them. He glanced at everyone sitting in the venue, as if he was looking for something. After looking back and forth a few times, he did not see the person he was looking for. He frowned slightly, then turned around and waved to the crowd behind him. A little fatty ran out of the crowd. This little fatty was Ding Fugue, who had come to planet Qiyang with Li Daochong on the life-saving shuttle. Little Ding, you said that Li Daochong is here to participate in the joint examination mobilization meeting. Why don't I see him? Ding Fugue scratched his head and said with a confused expression, Master Qin, I'm not sure either. Why don't you ask him? Qin Zhan turned to look at Chen Yun. Mayor Chen, who is the head of the Department of Education? Chen Yun quickly introduced. Master Qin, this is the head of the Department of Education on planet Qiyang, Zhou Shuming. He is also the one who organized this joint examination mobilization meeting. Chapter 242. When Zhou Shuming heard this, His heart skipped a beat. How did Qin Zhan know about Li Daochong? Zhou Shuming suddenly felt that something was amiss. It was impossible for a big shot like Qin Zhan to have any grudges with a little brat like Li Daochong. If there were no grudges, did that mean that he knew Li Daochong? Zhou Shuming suddenly felt like crying. Yu Boming, who was standing at the side, was sweating profusely. The Zhao family members looked at each other, but Zhao Puyi acted as if he didn't hear anything. He didn't believe that Qin Zhan knew Li Daochong. With a glance, Zhao Puyi saw the Zhao family's old ancestor, Zhao Haud, who was standing behind Qin Zhan. Zhao Haud had a head of white hair, but his complexion was ruddy. His body was surrounded by swirls of energy, and his eyes were full of vigor. With a slight inspection, one could tell that he was a Jin Dan cultivator. With Zhao Haud, the Zhao family's strength would reach another level. Zhao Puyi had already forgotten about his internal injuries and couldn't hide his smile. Master Qin, are you looking for Li Daochong? Zhou Shuming asked carefully. Yes, I came to planet Crimson Sun specifically for Li Daochong. May I know where he is now? Why didn't he participate in the joint examination mobilization meeting? Qin Zhan asked curiously. Zhou Shuming was suddenly at a loss for words. He couldn't answer, but his heart was screaming. Do you have to play me like this? He had just chased away those guys from Beiyang University, mainly to chase away Li Daochong. Just as he left, Qin Zhan came in and asked where Li Daochong was. What was going on? Why did he ask about Li Daochong? There were so many famous geniuses on planet Crimson Sun, but how many people knew about Li Daochong? If it wasn't for the conflict between Li Daochong and the Zhao family today, Zhou Shuming wouldn't even know that such a person existed. However, the strength that Li Daochong displayed was indeed monstrous. Yu Boming's mood became even more complicated. He had a premonition of something, but he wasn't very sure. Zhou Shuming paused for a long while before he braced himself and said, Master Qin, Li Daochong hasn't qualified to participate in the joint examination of 100 schools. He's a student at Beiyang University. The Ministry of Education has just issued a motion to revoke Beiyang University's right to establish a school. Neither Beiyang University nor Li Daochong are qualified to participate in the joint examination mobilization meeting. What? Not qualified? Qin Zhan's voice rose an octave as he glared at the head of the Scarlet Sun planet's education department. Then, he cursed. If Li Daochong isn't qualified, then no one on the entire Scarlet Sun planet is. When Zhou Shuming heard this, his legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. His facial features were twisted together. No matter how stupid he was, he could tell that Qin Zhan was well aware of Li Daochong's strength. It's over, it's over, it's over, it's over. Zhou Shuming's mind went blank and he felt dizzy. At that moment, the Zhao family members realized that something really wasn't right. The smile on Zhao Pani's face froze. If he still couldn't tell what Qin Zhan was implying, then he really was old and dim-sighted. Great official Qin, why are you so fierce? Let's talk nicely. Uncle Director, actually, Master Qin came here to personally present Li Daochong with a direct examination card. Li Daochong ranked first in the direct examination this time. In addition to the direct examination card, the military will also confer the rank of second lieutenant on Li Daochong and reward him with some things, Yu Yan said with a smile as she walked out of the crowd. Direct examination? Top in the evaluation? Zhou Shuming repeated the words with a different tone. Yes, Zhou Shuming felt his chest tighten, and there was a sweet taste in his throat. A mouthful of blood rushed into his mouth, and he was so scared that he suffered internal injuries. Yu Boming gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. His heart was trembling, and his hand that was hanging by the side pinched his thigh. What a sin, what a sin! The consequences of making the wrong choice were too heavy. Yu Boming regretted his past actions, and he could only blame himself for being blind. He chose the Zhao family over Li Daochong. As the director, Yu Boming was very clear about what it meant to be ranked first in the direct examination. In the past, there were always students who participated in the direct examination in the top 5 of the 100 schools joint examination. Fake, it must be fake. Zhao Pani almost shouted out, unwilling to accept the truth. Zhang Zhentian's face was ashen. His son had died for nothing, and the Zhan family was finished. Yuan Longji sat motionless in his seat. Even if he were to live again, he still wouldn't be able to see that Li Daochong would be ranked first in the direct examination. He actually drove Li Daochong out of Xiansong University just like that. Wasn't this the same as handing over a monstrous student who could make his meteoric rise to the top to someone else? Yuan Longji thoroughly understood what it meant to say that one could survive a natural disaster, but one could not survive a self-inflicted disaster. After this matter was thoroughly investigated, he would definitely lose his position as the principal. Going home early to retire was the best ending. Several of Li Daochong's friends from Xiansong University were all wide-mouthed. Today, they would never be able to close their mouth. Zhao Wujin stood in place in disbelief. His hands were tightly clenched into fists, and his nails dug deep into his palms. Blood flowed out from the gaps between his hands, but he was completely unaware. Qin Zhan saw that Zhou Shuming's reaction was strange, and said in a deep voice, "Director Zhou, why do you think it's strange? Beiyang University is under your jurisdiction, and Li Daochong is a student of Beiyang University. Don't tell me you don't know about his existence at all?" Zhou Shuming even had the heart to die. Master Qin, Li Daochong and the students of Beiyang University just left through the back door. It's not too late to call them now. A student in the seating area spoke up. Left through the back door? Qin Zhan frowned slightly. Yes, Director Zhou chased them away. He said that Beiyang University is not qualified to participate in the mobilization meeting. Li Daochong just fought with someone and killed a demonic cultivator. Another student replied. Chen Yun, the mayor of Qiyang City, who had been standing at the side without saying anything, quickly said, Master Qin, I'll go and chase them back. With that, Chen Yun was about to chase after them. Come back! Qin Zhan shouted coldly. Chen Yun turned around and looked at Qin Zhan inexplicably. I'll go. You stay here and watch over these guys. I have something to ask when I come back later. Qin Zhan said as he walked quickly to the back door. Yu Yen followed him while dodging catstep. When she passed by Zhou Shuming, she smiled and whispered, Director Zhou, you're really amazing. You even dare to chase away the people that Master Qin has his eyes on. A gust of fragrant wind blew past, accompanied by a bell-like laughter. Zhou Shuming could no longer support himself and sat down on the ground. Even though he was in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, his body felt as if it had been hollowed out. Ding Fugue was also smart and quickly followed. He was worried that Li Daochong would not recognize Qin Zhan. The group of people from Beiyang University did not go far. Yong Byungha's heart was heavy and his legs could not move. The anger he had suffered today was more than what he had suffered in his entire life. Qian Changhai's mood was not as low as Yong Byungha's. Not only was Li Daochong not dead, but his spirit meridians were also not broken. His strength and cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, and he was like a different person from before. As long as Li Daochong was fine, it was fine. Qian Changhai's heart was finally at ease. Li Daochong's face was relaxed. Today, he had finally settled his previous grudges. It was a pity that he could not kill Zhao Shi. However, he had taken revenge for that palm strike. If the Zhao family dared to cause trouble for him again, he would have to make them disappear. As they were walking, suddenly there was a call from behind. Li Daochong, wait a minute. Students from Beiyang University, please stay. The group of people stopped and turned to look strangely, only to see a round little fatty trotting all the way over. Ding Fugui, I thought you weren't coming. Li Daochong curled his lips. Chapter 243. As soon as Ding Fugui spoke, Qian Changhai and Yung Byungha were stunned for a moment before they sucked in a breath of cold air. If the two elders didn't know who Qin Zhan was, they would have lived most of their lives in vain. He was the most popular person in the Federation's self-cultivator army and was very likely to be the next commander of the Northwest Army. The students of Beiyang University were confused. Of course, they had heard of Qin Zhan, but how could such a legendary person appear here? As soon as Ding Fugui stepped aside, they saw a middle-aged man wearing a special military robe walking towards them. The middle-aged man was of medium build, and had a square face that gave off a dignified aura. Under his thick eyebrows were a pair of bright eyes and his nose was straight as a knife. Qin Zhan, it's Qin Zhan. I'm not dreaming, am I? A girl couldn't help but exclaim. The other students were all shocked. This person who had only appeared in the news was now standing in front of them. Qin Zhan walked over slowly and went straight to Li Daochong. A smile appeared on his serious face. Just as he was about to speak, a fragrant wind blew past. The eyes of the students lit up. A beautiful woman with a hot body wearing a tight robe with the unique logo of the Yunyao Company suddenly appeared. There were many beautiful women among the cultivators, but there weren't many who had such a hot figure. Her full breasts were almost bursting out of her tight clothes. Her open collar was snow-white, and there was also a faintly discernible deep cleavage. The woman actually blocked Qin Zhan behind her. In front of Li Daochong, she touched her chin with her white and slender hand and sized him up. Then, she slightly bowed, as if she was carefully examining a work of art. Her breathtakingly beautiful face was almost touching Li Daochong. The distance between their noses was absolutely no more than 10 centimeters, as if she wanted to see through Li Daochong. Qin Zhan frowned. He didn't know what Yu Yen was going to do, but he couldn't argue with her in front of so many people. Li Daochong's gaze was clear and he didn't avoid it. He just stood there calmly, allowing Yu Yen to look at him in such an impolite way. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. This overly beautiful woman looked harmless and her aura wasn't very strong, but Li Daochong knew that she was dangerous, very dangerous. Yu Yen looked at Li Daochong for a while and said with a smile, "You're Li Daochong?" Li Daochong nodded. "Yes." Without warning, Yu Yen opened her arms and hugged Li. What was this? Ding Fugui stared at Yu Yan's full breasts being compressed after she hugged Li Daochong. Damn, she's so fragrant. Ding Fugui's face was full of envy. Yu Yen was the goddess in his heart, and it was as difficult as ascending to heaven to see her. Damn, Li Daochong was hugged by Yu Yen the first time he saw her. This guy's luck with women was not bad. Qin Zhan's face turned cold and he was unhappy. This woman was really troublesome. Li Daochong also didn't expect this woman to suddenly hug him. The soft touch of her chest made his face slightly red. Li Daochong heard a pleasant voice. "Little guy, are you interested in working for me after graduation?" Li Daochong was a bit confused. He didn't even know who this woman was. "You are." Yu Yen let go of Li Daochong, and her beautiful eyes revealed a trace of embarrassment. "Aha, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Yu Yen, the commander of the Northwest Corps' vanguard. Your performance in the direct test was very good and I liked it very much. Do you want to consider joining my team? I'll treat you well." As she spoke, Yu Yen stretched out her index finger and lightly tapped Li Daochong's chin. She was actually brazenly flirting with this little fresh meat. Li Daochong's eyes flashed with a trace of helplessness. This woman really didn't avoid the taboo. Didn't she know that such a man was very dangerous? Li Daochong looked like his heart was still as water, but he was still young and vigorous. How could he not feel anything when such a beautiful woman hugged and flirted with him? However, Li Daochong's mental power was strong and his willpower was firm. Even if there were waves in his heart, he quickly calmed down. His dark eyes were like a clear spring, and he looked at Yu Yen without any distracting thoughts. Li Daochong smiled faintly. I'm not interested for the time being. I just want to take the joint examination of 100 schools and finish my studies. When Yu Yen heard this, she covered her face with both hands and said shyly, I was rejected. I'm so sad. The group of students from Beiyang University were dumbfounded. This beautiful woman clearly wanted to recruit Li Daochong, but why did it seem like she was flirting? Cough cough. Qin Zhan coughed twice and said, Yu Yen, that's enough. If you continue to mess around, I'll transfer you away. Yu Yen turned around and made a face. Official Qin, don't be so fierce to me all the time. I'm scared. Okay, I won't steal your man, okay? After saying this, Yu Yen took a step back, but her charming phoenix eyes were still fixed on Li Daochong. She kept shooting flirtatious glances at him, looking like she wouldn't stop until she had seduced Li Daochong. Qin Zhan patted Li Daochong's shoulder. Young man, Ding Fugue told me how you escaped from planet tongue pulling. I thank you on behalf of the military. If it weren't for you, the entire 5th Squadron would have been wiped out. Although not many people survived, under those circumstances we could only save as many as we could. Li Daochong, are you interested in joining my team? As long as you agree, I will immediately appoint you as the Deputy Commander of the Black Tiger Company of the Ferocious Tiger Corps. You will be able to complete your studies, and you will also be considered a part of the military during your studies. The military will distribute cultivation resources to you according to your rank. How about it? Qian Changhai and Yung Byungha looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. What did Li Daochong do during the direct examination? How did he manage to gain Qin Zhan's recognition and recruit Li Daochong to become a basic officer under his command? It was not easy to gain Qin Zhan's attention. It was even harder than winning the lottery. As long as Li Daochong agreed, his future cultivation path would be bright. Master Qin, I don't want to define myself too early for now. Right now, I just want to complete my studies and make plans after I graduate. Li Daochong's expression didn't change, much as he calmly replied. Why? Qian Changhai immediately cried out. That's right. Daochong, you have to think twice. If you can follow Master Qin, you will be able to learn a lot. It will also be very helpful for your cultivation. Besides, with a military position, it will be much more convenient for you to do anything in the future. Yung Byungha added with a puzzled expression. Li Daochong had his own plans. It wasn't that he didn't want to join the military, but he felt that it wasn't suitable for him to join the military according to the normal procedures. If he agreed now, it would be convenient, but he would also lose some freedom. It was equivalent to trapping himself in a box. Li Daochong had his own plans for his future. Cultivation would definitely be his top priority. Other than that, he also had some personal goals that he needed to complete. After joining the military, Li Daochong would no longer have the freedom to do whatever he wanted. There were many benefits, but he would also have to pay a corresponding price. Li Daochong was still worried about one person. This person had already entered 13 Specter, and he had lost contact with her. This person was Chu Qianyue. If he joined the military now, Li Daochong wouldn't be able to go to 13 Specter. Even if he did go, he would have to report his whereabouts at all times. This was because soldiers didn't belong to themselves. They belonged to the country. You don't have to be in such a hurry to reject me. I can give you a few days to think about it. Qin Zhan was a little surprised. I'm sorry, Master Qin. There's no need to think about it. I really don't want to join the cultivation army for the time being. I'll think about it after I finish my studies. Li Daochong's gaze was firm, and there was a hint of apology in his voice. If that's the case, then all right. A forcibly picked melon isn't sweet. I respect your decision. However, it's a pity that a talent like you doesn't join the military. The country needs you to resist the Hades. You should know that with great power comes great responsibility. Qin Zhan said earnestly. He could understand that young people liked to be free. However, if they wanted to avoid responsibility for the sake of freedom, then it was a different story. Master Qin, regardless of whether I join the Federation Cultivation Army or not, I'll still do my best for the Federation. Resisting the Hades is a responsibility that every cultivator can't avoid, Li Daochong said seriously. It's good that you understand. However, I'm a little anxious. You're just like your father. Brother Tianyang, you were also like this when you worked with me back then. Once you've decided on something, no matter what others say, it's useless. Like father, like son. You've perfectly inherited your father's character. Qin Zhan laughed as he said this. You know my father? Li Daochong asked in surprise. Li Daochong. Why else do you think we want you to join us so badly? Boss saved my life back then. Of course, I have to take care of his son, right? Yu Yen let out a bell-like laughter. So that's how it is. Li Daochong's eyes revealed a look of understanding. Chapter 244. There was no one in the Shenghua Federation who didn't know the importance of the direct card. Everyone was well aware of what the direct test was. Students who could pass the direct test were all people with strong willpower and a firm mind. This type of student would have some talent, but it wouldn't be that outstanding. Most of them would be in the upper middle class in cultivation colleges. But they would rely on their strong willpower and circumstances to choose to participate in the direct test in order to obtain the qualifications to participate in the joint examination of 100 schools. These students would either succeed or die trying, and would participate in the direct test with the determination to die, giving it their all. When they passed, both their cultivation and temperament would enter a whole new level. The Big Four attached more importance to this type of student than to those genius students who relied solely on their innate talent and superior conditions. Students who grew up in adversity would play a much greater role on the battlefield in the future than those who grew up in a greenhouse. When Qin Zhan personally handed the direct card to Li Daochong, the students in the venue all had envious expressions on their faces. Only now did Huang Yuelong understand why Li Daochong's emotions hadn't wavered at all when they had first met. Huang Yuelong only thought that what he had said to Li Daochong before was laughable. The other party hadn't taken him seriously at all. The Zhao family was completely dumbfounded. Zhao Poi felt the world spin around him, and he fainted. Zhao Wujin suddenly felt powerless. Yu Boming sat paralyzed in his chair as he watched Li Daochong take the direct card from Qin Zhan. Yu Boming glared fiercely at Zhao Poi. If it hadn't been for this old thing's instigation, how could he have given up on Li Daochong? But it was too late for regrets now. Yuan Longji's spirit was gone. He never would have thought that Li Daochong would even be able to pass the direct test. What kind of freak was this? This had already surpassed Zhao Wujin's upper limit. But how was this possible? The people of Blue Bay Star were heartbroken, while the principals of Red Sun Star were stunned. Beiyang University actually produced such a powerful student. Following that, the joint examination meeting ended in a hurry after awarding prizes to every student who had obtained the qualification for the examination. Since Beiyang University had Li Daochong, it would not be revoked. Qin Zhan personally sent a message to the Ministry of Education. The proposal to revoke the right to establish Beiyang University was quickly cancelled. Yong Byung-ha cried tears of joy, while Qian Changhai was gratified by Li Daochong's achievements. Not only did Li Daochong receive the direct card, but he also received generous rewards for saving the 5th Squadron and many students. Li Daochong was awarded the honorary rank of 2nd lieutenant by the military. If he joined the army, he would be immediately transferred to the same rank and could become a lieutenant in the cultivation army at any time. Before the end of the meeting, a small episode happened. The principal of Red Sun University, Pei Daolong, issued an invitation to Li Daochong. Student Li, you are talented and deserve the best cultivation environment and resources. On behalf of Red Sun University, I officially extend an invitation to you to study at Red Sun University. Pei Daolong looked at Li Daochong with confidence. Li Daochong smiled and was about to speak when his watch suddenly vibrated. He received a message. When he looked down, the smile on his face deepened. Seeing that Li Daochong did not speak, Pei Daolong continued, Student Li, I'm relieved. You're still a student of Beiyang University. Pei Daolong was a veteran, so he naturally knew that it was disgraceful to snatch someone away in public, so he added this sentence. The old man was very clear that a student with such a temperament like Li Daochong's would not be so easily persuaded. Moreover, Beiyang University had taken him in when he was in trouble. Normal people would not forget the kindness of providing charcoal in snowy weather. He said this to give Li Daochong a way out so that he could choose Red Sun University. In Pei Daolong's opinion, no one could resist the temptation of better conditions. Compared to Red Sun University, Beiyang University was like heaven and earth. The students of Red Sun University's super class could enter the most famous training hall on Red Sun Planet to cultivate. Pei Daolong suddenly issued an invitation, and the people around looked at Li Daochong. Qin Zhan stood at the side, and there was a slight movement in his eyes. He also wanted to know what choice Li Daochong would make. Yu Yan's charming little face had a big smile on it. She also looked at Li Daochong, and it was impossible to tell what she was thinking. Huang Jiran stood behind her father and could not help but whisper, Big brotherly, agree. Red Sun University's cultivation place is many times better than Beiyang University's. Huang Yuelong also thought so. In his opinion, Li Daochong did not need to consider anything at all. The joint examination of 100 schools would begin in a month, and the next month would be the most crucial. All the candidates had been confirmed, and the students who had qualified would do everything in their power to improve their cultivation in the last month to prepare for the examination. Although Li Daochong was very strong now, he could only be considered above average in the entire fourth ring star zone. The geniuses who could participate in the joint examination of 100 schools were 1 in a million. All of them were monstrously talented and had many trump cards. Whether it was Red Sun Planet or Blue Bay Star, they were only fourth-class cultivation planets. Li Daochong was indeed amazing here. However, on third-class cultivation planets, there were many second-year students who could reach the peak of the Qi-gathering realm, not to mention second-class cultivation planet. The 3 most famous people in the fourth ring star zone had already broken through to the early stage foundation establishment stage. That was not all. What was even more frightening was a first-class cultivation planet, but there were no such planets in the fourth ring star zone. In the entire fourth ring star zone, there was only one second-class cultivation planet, the Kangwu star. The fourth ring star zone was considered average in the entire Shenghua Federation. The areas outside the fifth ring star zone were more turbulent, and the dark ghost could not infiltrate the fifth ring star zone. The fourth ring star zone was the front line. There were also third ring star zone, second ring star zone, and first ring star zone. The core of the Federation was concentrated in the first ring star zone, but it was not so easy to enter the first ring star zone. In the first ring star zone, there was the only top-class cultivation planet in the Federation. The geniuses on it were beyond the imagination of the fourth ring star zone. The joint examination of 100 schools was not limited to the fourth ring star zone. The third ring star zone, second ring star zone, and first ring star zone all held it. The Big Four recruited students from the entire Federation, but there were very few places outside the third ring star zone. In the end, no more than 30,000 students from the fourth ring star zone would be able to enter the third ring star zone. Only a few hundred people would be recruited by the Big Four. The joint examination of 100 schools selected true dragons among dragons, true phoenixes among phoenixes, and geniuses among geniuses. Li Daochong lowered his head and did not say anything. No one knew what he was thinking. Young Byung-ha thought that Li Daochong would not agree in front of so many people, so he said, "Li Daochong, Qiyang University's cultivation place is indeed the best on planet Qiyang. It's even better than your Blue Bay Stars Xian Sang University. Go ahead. Remember to come back and visit me and Brother Chonghai when you have time. We will cheer for you. With your talent, you will definitely shine in the joint examination of 100 schools. Don't let us down." Qian Chonghai nodded. "Dao Chong, go ahead. Qian, you will also hope that you can get better cultivation conditions." Pei Daolong smiled. He did not believe that there would be a student on planet Qiyang who would reject Qiyang University's invitation. One had to know that countless students wanted to enter Qiyang University. It was a small matter to spend a lot of money. Some even did not hesitate to sell their family's assets. Li Daochong lowered his head and pondered. He was hesitant, which meant that he was tempted. He just needed to put on an act and pretend that he was very reluctant. He cared about Beiyang University and could not bear to leave it. Otherwise, he would be scolded for forgetting his roots in the future. Pei Daolong felt that it was about time. He just needed to add a little more incentive. Li Daochong would definitely agree, so he said, "Studently, in the next month, as long as you ask, I will make everything convenient for you. You can choose any cultivation place in Qiyang University. Don't worry about cultivation resources. As long as Qiyang University has it, we will provide it to you for free. We will also give you a generous scholarship." When the surrounding students heard this, they almost drooled. If they agreed immediately, it would be a good thing that fell from the sky. The principals of the various universities on planet Qiyang looked at Pei Daolong meaningfully. They did not expect that Pei Daolong would go all out for his career. The director of planet Qiyang's Department of Education, Zhou Shuming, misled students. He actually chased away Li Daochong, who scored first in the direct examination. His career had come to an end. After Qin Zhan called Li Daochong back, he did not even look at Zhou Shuming. The mayor of Qiyang City, Chen Yun, had already ordered people to chase Zhou Shuming away. Pei Daolong obviously smelled the possibility of him being promoted. If Li Daochong agreed, Pei Daolong would indirectly curry favor with Qin Zhan. He would also give Qiyang University another trump card. Even if he was just a temporary student, he would still be a student trained by Qiyang University. At this moment, Li Daochong was not hesitating at all. He did not even hear what Pei Daolong was saying. Similarly, he did not hear what Young Byung-ha and Qian Chonghai were saying. A few minutes ago, Li Daochong received a long-distance message from Chu Qianyue. This was the first time his beautiful teacher had sent a message to him. There was only one sentence. "Brat, old man Qian told me that you went to participate in the direct examination? Are you alive or dead now?" After Chu Qianyue left, she had never taken the initiative to send a message to Li Daochong. This was the first time. Her tone was still so cold and distant. However, Li Daochong could always feel the concern in her stiff tone. Chapter 245. Pei Daolong couldn't believe his ears. Li Daochong had refused so bluntly that he didn't seem to hesitate at all. Among those present, Su Yuliang was probably the happiest to hear Li Daochong refuse. When Qin Zhan really did personally call Li Daochong to a meeting, the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Education felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Su Yuliang had never dreamed that Li Daochong's power would grow so rapidly, so much so that he still hadn't reacted. Su Yuliang had wanted to see Li Tianyang and his father make fools of themselves, which made him very angry, but there was nothing he could do about it. At least for the time being, he couldn't stop Li Daochong from getting the direct card. Qin Zhan wasn't someone he could provoke. When Pei Daolong extended the invitation to Li Daochong, Su Yuliang gave Pei Daolong a covert glare, blaming that guy for being meddlesome. Li Daochong was already so awesome. If he was given better conditions, wouldn't he turn the sky upside down? Su Yuliang naturally didn't want to see Li Daochong continue to be so awesome, and he immediately got in touch with Qiu Xiong to discuss countermeasures. Su Yuliang thought about his previous attitude toward Li Daochong, and he was afraid. He was worried that Li Daochong would retaliate against him in the future, so he had to nip the danger in the bud. Now that the bud had grown into a sapling, he really wouldn't be able to do anything if it kept growing. No one noticed Su Yuliang's secret movements. Everyone's eyes were focused on Li Daochong. Li Daochong was smiling when he refused, and he was smiling very happily. Pei Daolong looked at Li Daochong as if he was looking at a monster. "Mr. Li, have you thought this through?" Qin Zhan stood at the side, and a smile appeared on his dignified face. This kid really didn't care about anyone. He had a very firm goal and plan, and he wouldn't change his mind because of any temptation. Yu Yan's pair of red phoenix eyes looked at Li Daochong with great interest. She was now a little curious about this clean-looking young man. If it were her, she would have accepted Qiyang University's invitation without hesitation. It would be a waste not to take advantage of such good cultivation conditions. Yong Byung-ha and Qian Chonghai looked at each other. The two old brothers smiled vaguely. Li Daochong was indeed loyal. However, even if Li Daochong chose Qiyang University, the two old men wouldn't complain. They sincerely hoped that Li Daochong would achieve something in the future. The Federation needed talents like Li Daochong. The threat of the Hades was always there. To the two old men, as long as they could cultivate outstanding talents who could resist the Hades, nothing else mattered. Li Daochong said calmly, "Thank you, Principal Pei. Daochong appreciates your kindness. I quite like the cultivation environment at Beiyang University." Pei Daolong looked at Li Daochong in disbelief. If that really happened, the ones who would suffer the most would be the family members at the bottom. At that time, they would become jobless. No matter how rich the Li family's upper echelons were, they still had a certain amount of strength. Even if the family disbanded, they could still live comfortably. Therefore, when they heard that Li Daochong was about to take part in the joint examination of 100 schools and was very likely to get very good results, most of the Li family regretted driving Li Tianyang and his father out of the family. Some people personally went to the old residence to see Li Tianyang, but they were all refused entry. Yin Ping didn't even let them in. Li Qingyao, on the other hand, was elusive. She spent most of her time studying in Xiansong University's refining department and didn't see anyone. As for Li Tianyang's whereabouts, no one knew. Yin Ping only said that Li Tianyang had gone out and hadn't returned. Unable to find the person responsible, the Li family gathered together to suppress the current head of the family, Li Tianhe, the chief steward, Li Tianxing, and the head elder, Li Boyo, who was in charge of the family's finances. They demanded an explanation. Several hundred family members had gathered outside the Li family's main hall. They were all direct descendants of the Li family. Collateral relatives and family generals stood outside the Li family's main hall. Could it be that Li Daochong's spirit vein grew in an invisible way and actually perfectly inherited Li Tianyang's genes? A tall woman stood outside the crowd and guessed. She was the granddaughter of the Li family's second elder, Li Ling. She studied at Cloud Mist University and was in her 4th year. Her cultivation was at the 7th layer of qi refining. The second elder, Li Tianyang, had always supported Li Tianyang, but he was too weak to shake the position of the head elder and his two nephews. He had no choice but to remain silent. In Li Mubai's opinion, even if Li Tianyang didn't have his cultivation, he could still lead the Li family forward. No one else could. Beside Li Ling was a handsome young man called Li He. He was the grandson of the third elder, Li Qibin. He usually kept a low profile, and wasn't on the same side as Li Xiandong and the others. Li He was the only male in the Li family who didn't bully Li Daochong when he was young. He even spoke up for Li Daochong. However, after Li He was beaten up, he didn't dare to make a sound. At that time, Li Tianyao almost broke his leg. Li He was scared out of his wits and didn't dare to help Li Daochong anymore. Maybe, but when I was young, I really couldn't see how Li Daochong could achieve what he has today. It's said that the pass test is very scary. Don't even talk about getting a pass card, just surviving is enough to make you a powerhouse. Li He looked at the Li family members who were making a scene in the hall. He was heartbroken to see the family in such a state. Li Tianhe, if you don't take out the accounts for everyone to see, don't even think about leaving this door. Li Din looked at him coldly. He was going to go all out today. Li Din was the head of the Li family's transportation business. He knew best where the family's problem was. It was a lack of funds. Half of the 100 or so shuttles under his control couldn't even be replenished with spirit stones. Without spirit stones, the shuttles couldn't fly. If they couldn't fly, how could they transport goods? Move them? Li Din had applied to replenish spirit stones several times, but Li Tianxing had been perfunctory. He didn't care about the family business at all. Yes, take out the accounts. We want to see the account. The group of heads followed Li Din's lead and shouted. Li Tianhe was a little flustered. How could he have imagined that these normally docile people would be so violent today? They all looked like wild wolves, as if they wanted to swallow him whole. Li Tianxing also had a look of fear on his face. This bunch of people had already lost control and could no longer be controlled. However, how could he take out the accounts? If they were to check the accounts, he and Li Tianhe would be skinned alive. The two of them looked at the back door of the hall from time to time. Great Elder Li Boyo had told them to hold the fort. He had a way to resolve this rebellion. But an hour had already passed, and Li Boyo was nowhere to be seen. Li Tianhe and Li Tianxing had a bad feeling in their hearts. Li Boyo, that old thing, didn't abandon them and run away. Li Tianhe regretted the most at the moment that he didn't cultivate properly. If he worked hard and threw some resources at himself, he should have been able to reach the foundation establishment stage. If he had a foundation establishment stage cultivation base, he wouldn't have to be afraid of these people who wanted to rebel. Unfortunately, he didn't have a foundation establishment stage cultivation base. At least half of the heads had a cultivation base higher than him, and Li Tianxing was the same. The second and third elders had a foundation establishment stage cultivation base, but the two of them were standing outside the riot crowd. Obviously, they were supporting the rebellion. Li Tianhe, if you continue to stall for time, don't blame us for ignoring our brotherhood and attacking you. Li Din's eyes were bloodshot. He really had no way out. Dean, don't talk nonsense with him. Everyone, rush into the family vault to check the account. If you don't let us in, then rush in. Yes, rush in. We must see the accounts today. Where is the family's money? Where did it go? As they spoke, the crowd began to surge. Several impulsive clansmen rushed up and grabbed Li Tianhe. Li Tianhe wanted to resist, but it was difficult for his two fists to resist. Instead, he suffered a few punches. Li Tianxing was the same. You dare to attack me? Li Tianhe shouted anxiously. Yes, we're beating you. You won't let us see the accounts. Is there a ghost? Someone angrily rebuked. Li Tianhe moved the spirit qi in his body. He wanted to shake off the person who grabbed him and kick the person next to him away. This action immediately angered the crowd. Hit him! Hit him! Countless fists fell on Li Tianhe's head and body like raindrops. Li Tianxing's situation was even worse. He was directly pressed to the ground and stepped on. The scene was about to go completely out of control. Li Tianhe and Li Tianxing were about to be beaten to death. Suddenly, a strong spirit qi oppressed them and a figure appeared in an instant. Bang bang! Two muffled sounds. Li Din and another head elder flew back more than 10 meters. When they landed, their chests caved in. They spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Ancestor. Chapter 246. The Li family's ancestor, Li Wanyin, hadn't interfered with family affairs for many years. He was a figure from the previous generation of Li family elders, and was in the late stage of foundation establishment. In the past, he was the #1 figure in the Li family, but was later replaced by Li Tianyang. Ever since Li Tianyang became the head of the family, he didn't concern himself with family affairs and devoted himself to cultivation. Li Wanyin wholeheartedly wanted to break through to the Jindan stage, but after reaching the late stage of foundation establishment, he was still unable to break through. He had also used a lot of cultivation resources, but to no avail. Talent wasn't something that could be obtained just because you wanted to, and it wasn't something that could be obtained by suddenly piling up cultivation resources. Now that Li Tianyang's cultivation had fallen greatly, and Li Wanyin had become the #1 figure in the Li family, if the outside world hadn't known that the Li family still had such an ancestor, the situation would have been even more bleak. As soon as Li Wanyin appeared, he beat Li Din and the other elder half to death, and the chaotic scene instantly calmed down. The clan members feared this ancestor from the bottom of their hearts. Li Tianhe and Li Tianxing scrambled up from the ground, and hurriedly bowed to Li Wanyin. "Thank you, ancestor." Li Wanyin had a tall stature, and although he was already over 100 years old, his complexion looked ruddy and didn't show any signs of aging. After reaching foundation establishment, one's lifespan would increase, and without any hidden injuries or illnesses, it was still possible for one to live for more than 100 years. Li Wanyin looked down at his 2 grandsons, his face full of resentment for their failure to live up to his expectations. However, these 2 grandsons had always been filial to him. When Li Tianyang was in power, he didn't receive so many benefits, and could only receive the usual offerings, which weren't even enough for one cultivation session. In the past half a year, Li Wanyin had received more than 10 times the usual amount of cultivation resources. Moreover, these 2 were very sensible. Every few days, they would give him a few rare spirit grasses for him to refine high-grade spirit medicines. Needless to say, Li Boyo directly gave Li Wanyin a high-grade earth-class mantra and even introduced Qiu Xiong to Li Wanyin. When Li Wanyin was young, he was also concerned about his family. However, as he grew older, he became more and more eager to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. There was no other reason. Li Wanyin didn't want to die. He didn't have much lifespan left. If he couldn't break through to the peak of the foundation establishment stage, he could only live for another 10 years. Therefore, Li Wanyin didn't care about the family affairs at all. His mind was focused on his own cultivation. As long as he could make a breakthrough, Li Wanyin didn't care about anything else. These days, with the benefits he received, and the things Qiu Xiong gave him, Li Wanyin's cultivation, which had stagnated for decades, actually broke through to the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Li Wanyin even saw the possibility of stepping into the Jindan stage. If he could really condense a Jindan, his lifespan would increase by more than 60 years. The mantra that Li Boyo gave Li Wanyin didn't have a good effect on his own cultivation. However, if he cultivated it together, he would get twice the result with half the effort. It was said that this mantra was a secret mantra of the Ouyang family, one of the 4 great families of the Scarlet Sun planet. Li Boyo bought it through Qiu Xiong at a high price. Li Wanyin tasted the sweetness, so he was naturally happy. The benefits of having the 3 of them in charge of the Li family were self-evident. Li Wanyin was unhappy because Li Tianhe and Li Tianxing couldn't even handle such a small matter. They had to ask him to step in. To put it bluntly, they had no power and no power. If the 2 of them were strong enough, even if they were early foundation establishment stage, who in the Li family would dare to cause trouble? If they did, they would be slapped to death. If they didn't want to stay in the Li family, they could just scram. Li Wanyin was in the middle of his dual cultivation when Li Boyo called him over. This made him very angry. Li Wanyin didn't care about family anymore. He had lived for more than 100 years. His friends and family were all dead. He was the only one left. The oldest member of the Li family in front of him, Li Boyo, was also his grandson. Li Wanyin originally had a son, but he died of a strange disease in his 40s. He didn't have any descendants. Li Wanyin was already over 80 years old at that time. Because he was close to 70 years old when he entered foundation establishment, his lifespan increased. However, his body didn't rejuvenate. He could only stay around 70 years old. If he wanted to have children again, he didn't have the strength. He could have sex, but he didn't have the ability to reproduce. Therefore, to Li Wanyin, there was no one in the Li family who was worthy of his affection. Li Wanyin knew that his talent was limited. If he wanted to break through to the Jindan stage, the only way was to throw in all his cultivation resources and use some secret techniques to forcefully break through. Li Wanyin knew that the only thing he could squander right now was the Li family's money. He didn't care about the lives of the others. Li Wanyin swept his gaze over the crowd. No one dared to look him in the eyes. They all lowered their heads. Many of the clan members with low cultivation levels were so scared that they trembled. The pressure that Li Wanyin was emitting made it difficult for them to breathe. The pressure of a peak foundation establishment cultivator wasn't something that ordinary people could withstand. They were like mice that had seen a cat. It was an innate fear. Whoever causes trouble will be punished according to the family rules. I won't tolerate it, Li Wanyin said in a deep voice. Every member of the Li family felt as if they had been struck by thunder. They felt dizzy. Li Wanyin reprimanded. I heard that there are people who want that bastard Li Tianyang to return to the family and become the family head. Don't you know what he did? He was removed from his position and investigated. Although there was a reason for this and he didn't cause the family to lose face, he still violated military rules and caused the deaths of many cultivator soldiers. Being forced to retire was the best result. Now he's a cripple. Are you guys crazy? You want to let such a person become the family head? No one dared to make a sound. Even the clan members who were normally very tough were silent. Even if they had something to say, they didn't dare to say it. I've also heard that Li Daochong passed the direct test, but don't think that he can overturn the heavens just because of this. Haven't you heard of this saying? A child can reach 80? You know better than anyone what kind of person Li Daochong is. Even if he has a promising future, he won't be able to achieve much. The only reason he was able to pass the direct test was because he had some kind of fortuitous encounter. Either that, or Li Tianyang had embezzled something from the family and left it to his son. Now that the Li family is in such a state, I think it's all because of Li Tianyang and his son. If you still have internal strife at this time, it will only cause the family to fall apart. Why don't you unite and properly manage the family instead of causing internal strife? Do you really want the Li family to disband? Li Wanyin was filled with righteous indignation. Whether the old ancestors' words were true or false, many of the clan members still believed them. For a moment, many of them looked at each other. Yes, the old ancestor is right. How could Li Daochong suddenly become so powerful? It must have been Li Tianyang who embezzled the family's money back then. Otherwise, how could a waste with a depleted spirit vein become so powerful? Someone in the crowd suddenly whispered. When that person spoke, his eyes inadvertently glanced at Li Tianhe. He was Li Tianhe's trusted aide. The clan members who had originally come in groups suddenly had cracks in their hearts. Many of them began to suspect Li Tianyang and his son. The previous calls for Li Tianyang and his son to return disappeared without a trace. Everyone's faces were filled with suspicion. Some people even wanted to question Li Tianyang. Their hearts were filled with resentment. All of you listen up. In the future, if I hear any voices calling for Li Tianyang and his son to return, I will thoroughly investigate the source. Whoever made those voices will be punished as a traitor. Their cultivation will be abolished, they will be expelled from the clan, and all their assets will be confiscated. Li Wanyin said coldly. Why are you all still standing there? Hurry up and get back to work. Li Boyo, who came later, said sternly as soon as he came in. At first, they all stood still. At this time, Li Tianhe's trusted aide turned around and left. When one person moved, he immediately led the people around him. In a short while, the crowd in the hall and courtyard dispersed. After the crowd dispersed, Li Tianhe and Li Tianxing heaved a sigh of relief. Once again, they faced Li Wanyin and said, "Thank you, old ancestor." Li Wanyin's expression relaxed. He patted the two on the shoulder and said, "Remember my 500-year-old fierce sungrass." Chapter 247. Li Daochong naturally didn't know about the riot in the Blue Bay Stars Li family, and he didn't need to know. The Li family had nothing to do with him anymore. After Li Daochong obtained the direct card, he became a star student at Beiyang University. Many girls from good families tried their best to get close to Li Daochong. Tan Shiyuan and Xiaohuquan were harassed by countless girls every day. However, they only harassed them to get Li Daochong's contact information and find out about Li Daochong's whereabouts. However, Li Daochong had only returned to the school for a day after the joint examination. After that, he left. Only a few people knew where he had gone. "Brother Tan, tell me, where is Li Daochong, please?" A sweet-looking girl with a curvy figure stood in front of Tan Shiyuan and asked. Tan Shiyuan was speechless. Here it comes again. There's no end to it. Xiao Li, how many times have I said it? I really don't know where Li Daochong is. Xiao Li didn't believe him. How can that be? Brother Tan, aren't you good friends with Li Daochong? How can you not know where he went? Xiaohuquan helped her out. Xiao Li, Qiyuan really doesn't know. Li Daochong only said that he would travel around for the next month and disappeared the next day. Xiao Li pouted. Forget it if you don't want to tell me. Then, she walked away angrily. Tan Shiyuan and Xiaohuquan looked at each other and shrugged at the same time. This kind of scene happened several times every day. Daochong, you really have foresight. You know that you will attract bees and butterflies. Why don't you just leave? It's quieter. Xiaohuquan sighed. That kid has a strong sense of purpose. He doesn't seem to be interested in women. Tan Xiaoyuan curled his lips, but in his heart, he was full of admiration for Li Daochong. This guy's sense of purpose was extremely strong. Others simply couldn't form any sort of disturbance to him. It's not that he's not interested. He probably doesn't like her. At Li Daochong's level, he must have very high standards. This guy is only 18 or 19 years old, and he's about to build his foundation. His future is limitless. It's too early for him to fall in love, Xiaohuquan said. We have to work harder too. We can't just eat, drink, and play all day long. Tan Shiyuan's eyes lit up. Yes, let's go to the training center. Today, I will do 1,000 squats with weight. Xiaohuquan was excited. Pure cultivation was not of much use to Li Daochong. He could consolidate his cultivation base, but it was absolutely impossible for him to increase his cultivation base. The only way for Li Daochong to cultivate was to kill nether ghosts. Killing monsters to level up was Li Daochong's only way to increase his cultivation. Therefore, Li Daochong needed to consider finding nether ghosts to kill or absorb. If he stayed in one place, he definitely wouldn't be able to find nether ghosts. Li Daochong had always found the Black Wraith binding spirit on the infamily strange. Therefore, he had gotten Xing Jiao to investigate the matter. In the beginning, Li Daochong didn't expect to find anything, but Xing Jiao really did find something. The second day of Li Daochong's mobilization meeting, He went to the dungeon to meet Xing Jiao. When Li Daochong arrived at Shadow Serene Square, he realized that Ling Fei and Xiao Ying were still there. In order to make a living, the two of them had become bodyguards and had become Shadow Serene Square's security personnel. Li Daochong thought this was good. There were all kinds of people in the dungeon, so it was a good way to train the two of them. Mr. Li, I have no clue why so many black wraith binding spirits have appeared in the infamily. However, I found out that 2 years ago, the infamily went on a mission to a mine in the northern part of planet Red Sunday. At the time, they said that they found a spirit stone mine, but in the end, they found that it was a dead mine, so the matter was left unsettled. The list you gave me showed that everyone went to the mine. At the time, the infamily was preparing to make a big fuss. If it really was a spirit stone mine, the infamily's status would rise to another level. They might even leave planet Red Sun and enter a third-class cultivation planet, Xing Jiao analyzed. Li Daochong listened carefully and his eyes flickered. He wanted to find the reason because he felt that the black wraith binding spirits possessed the infamily didn't seem to be a simple coincidence. It was premeditated. Perhaps nether ghosts wanted something on planet Red Sunday, otherwise, there was no way so many black wraith binding spirits would appear. If he could find the source, he might find something. Li Daochong felt that these black wraith binding spirits must be controlled by high-level nether ghosts. In the days since Li Daochong came to planet Red Sun, the hot-blooded upgrader would sound like an alarm at a specific time every night. However, the duration was very short. It would disappear after a few seconds. Li Daochong's intuition told him that something must have happened on planet Red Sunday. Idling around for a month wouldn't increase his cultivation, so it was better to find the source of this matter. Perhaps he would find something unexpected. Li Daochong's goal was simple. He wanted to find nether ghosts and then kill or devour them. Where is the mine? Li Daochong asked immediately. It's at Shuangyuan Town, which is closest to the Arctic Circle on planet Red Sun, Xing Jiao said immediately. Thank you, Chief Xing. After saying that, Li Daochong turned and left. Xing Jiao's face was full of confusion. She froze for a moment, then chased after him and asked, Mr. Li, are you going to Shuangyuan Town? Li Daochong glanced at Xing Jiao indifferently and nodded. His footsteps became faster and faster. Should I go with you? Xing Jiao asked. No, I will go by myself. You continue to investigate this matter. If you find anything, inform me immediately. After Li Daochong finished speaking, his speed suddenly increased, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Xing Jiao stopped and stared blankly into the distance. There was no one in front of her except for the dim streets of the underground city. She was shocked that Li Daochong could reach such a level of speed. Planet Red Sun was in the middle of planet Red Sunday. It was close to the equator and thousands of miles away from Shuangyuan Town. No matter how powerful Li Daochong was now, he couldn't go there on foot. Planet Red Sun was a little bigger than Blue Bay Star. Even if a Foundation establishment cultivator flew on his sword, it would take him 2 days to cross half the planet. Although Foundation establishment cultivators could fly on their swords, they had just stepped into the ranks of cultivators after all. Their spirit energy wasn't dense enough. They couldn't fly too far and their speed was limited. They would need to rest every few hundred kilometers. Flying on a sword consumed a lot of spirit energy. Only when one reached the Jin Dan stage could they fly long distances. Li Daochong left the underground city and ran all the way to the port of planet Red Sunday. He bought a bus shuttle ticket and boarded the bus shuttle to Icicle City. Shuangyuan Town was a small town. There was no direct bus shuttle. Li Daochong could only go to Icicle City, the largest city in the north of planet Red Sunday. Then, he would transfer to a small shuttle to Shuangyuan City. The journey was more than 10,000 kilometers. The bus shuttle would take 7 hours. It wasn't a long time, but it wasn't short either. Li Daochong boarded the bus shuttle. After sitting down, he closed his eyes and entered a state of meditation. The entire bus shuttle could accommodate more than 100 people. Li Daochong sat at the back. Beside him sat a burly man with a fierce face and bulging muscles. At first glance, one could tell that he was a cultivator. Li Daochong casually probed him. He was at the 6th level of the Qi refinement realm and a body refinement realm cultivator. Almost 2/3 of the 2-row seats were taken by the burly man. However, the seat itself was quite big. Li Daochong's body was thin, so he wasn't squeezed. Therefore, he didn't say anything. Sitting opposite Li Daochong was a young girl. She was wearing casual clothes and looked quite pretty. She could be considered a beauty. Li Daochong didn't care at first. However, after probing, he was slightly surprised. This woman's cultivation had reached the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. She was much higher than the burly man sitting next to him. Moreover, she was also a body refinement realm cultivator. 5 hours later, the bus shuttle entered an ice field. They had already entered the northernmost part of the red sun star. Suddenly, the shuttle bus shook twice, and then the flight attendant announced, "Attention all passengers, attention all passengers, there is a small malfunction in the flight spirit array, and we need to land for maintenance. Please do not panic and wait patiently. We apologize for the inconvenience caused." There was a commotion in the shuttle cabin. The shuttle swayed and landed in a coniferous forest covered by snow below. Several flight attendants immediately got off the shuttle to repair it. After sitting for 5 hours, many passengers were in a panic. They all got off the shuttle and walked around. Li Daochong was meditating and had no intention of getting off. The young woman sitting opposite him sat for a while. She seemed to be bored and got off the shuttle. As soon as the woman got off, the burly man sitting next to Li Daochong also followed. Originally, Li Daochong didn't care much, but the moment the burly man got up, Li Daochong's keen telekinesis noticed a death aura. Li Daochong's closed eyes slowly opened. A glimmer of light flashed, and he slowly got up and got off the shuttle. Outside was a snow-white world. He couldn't see the end of it. The snow under his feet was 2 feet thick. If he stepped on it, half of his leg would sink in. The burly man got off the shuttle and met with the other 2 people to talk about something. Li Daochong stood not far away and looked away. He condensed his telekinesis and probed the burly man. But the death aura was gone. Li Daochong frowned. Was it his illusion? How long will it take to fix it? The young woman asked the flight attendant who was repairing it. The flight attendant revealed a troubled expression. It's hard to say. The runes on the spirit array suddenly short-circuited and need to be reconnected. We're not professional maintenance personnel, let alone rune masters. It might take an hour or 2. Oh, I see. Then I'll sit here. The young woman didn't want to wait and said, Miss, this place is in the middle of nowhere. It's dozens of kilometers away from the nearest town. You can't get there even if you walk at night. The flight attendant kindly reminded her. It's okay. I have this. The young woman took out a skateboard. She stepped on the skateboard and slid away on the snow. Her speed was quite fast. Li Daochong didn't think much about it. As soon as the young woman left, the burly man and his companion also left. The 3 of them also had skateboards. When the burly man went away, Li Daochong once again detected the death aura. He frowned and immediately followed. Not long after, such a scene appeared in the ice forest. Chapter 248. The young woman was called Wenwan. She was not going to Icicle City, but to a deserted villa in the snowfield to meet a client to discuss a deal. Wenwan had spent 3 months searching the entire Scarlet Sun planet to find this item. She had almost used up all of her savings and had almost lost her life. However, she had finally gotten her hands on it. As long as she sold it, she would not have to worry about the rest of her life. The money she got from the deal was enough for her to break through to the Foundation establishment realm. When Juan deliberately destroyed the flight's spiritual array on the bus shuttle because she wanted to land in this area and leave. When Juan got what she wanted, but she soon found that someone was following her. After when Juan glided for a few kilometers, her beautiful eyes flashed with murderous intent. She simply stopped and stood in the snow, waiting for the people who were following her to arrive. When Juan's delicate little face did not show any panic. She looked at the 3 approaching black spots in the distance with a faint smile. However, she felt a little strange. The deal this time was very private. She had stayed in the periphery of the dark night for a year. Later, she felt that her strength was too weak and left the dark night. When Juan, who had been an assassin for a year, always left no trace. Even a master of the Chi-gathering realm would find it difficult to find her. In addition, the thing she was looking for this time was in an ancient tomb. This news was told to her by Wen Wan's grandfather before he died. At that time, she did not take it seriously. Now that she was in dire need of money, she happened to meet an old client of hers who wanted it. The price was very high, so Wen Wan went to the ancient tomb mentioned by her grandfather to search. The first time, she returned without any result. She met a group of tomb robbers and almost lost her life. After that, Wen Wan did everything she could to make full preparations. Those tomb robbers also helped. When Wen Wan arrived again, they opened the ancient tomb. Both sides fought fiercely. Wen Wan killed all of them and buried their bodies in the ancient tomb. She really found the thing that her grandfather said that year. Wen Wan immediately contacted the buyer, and the other party agreed to meet in this area. Along the way, Wen Wan was extremely cautious and did not notice anything out of the ordinary. It was only when they entered Crimson Sun City that she felt something strange. Standing in the snow, Wen Wan stared at the 3 men who were following her. In the wilderness, there was a woman who looked so weak that she could not even stand up to a gust of wind. She was facing 3 burly men without the slightest bit of fear. She had a casual expression. One of the 3 big men was the big man sitting next to Li Daochong. He was a gangster who lived in the northern city circle. People called him Vulture, and he made a living by robbing the belongings of travelers who were alone. In fact, Vulture had his eyes on Wen Wan not for her money, but for her. Recently, Vulture had contacted a big client and asked him to look for beautiful women. It was said that it was for the sake of cultivation. As long as he could provide such a woman, the other party would offer an extremely attractive price. Based on one's looks and physique, the price ranged from 50 million to 1 million. Vulture was loitering around the Crimson Sun City's shuttle port. The moment he saw Wen Wan, he knew that this woman was definitely worth 1 million gold coins. Humans die in pursuit of wealth, just like birds die in pursuit of food. To someone like Vulture, 1 million gold coins was a huge sum of money. It was enough for him to squander for 2 to 3 months. Vulture had been following her all the way with his 2 accomplices. Seeing that there was no one around, he was about to speed up. He did not expect his prey to stop by herself. Vulture's fierce-looking face revealed a sinister smile. This woman was really beautiful. Her skin was soft and tender, and her body was curvaceous. Just looking at her made his heart itch. "You're following me?" Wen Wan asked with a half-smile. "Haha, little girl, you've seen through us. That's right, we're following you. You see, it's been quite tiring to follow you all the way here. Do you want to reward us, brothers? When we're done, how about I reward you?" Vulture said with a smile. In this remote and uninhabited place, his greed burst forth uncontrollably. At first, Vulture only wanted to kidnap her and sell her. However, this woman was too tempting. He changed his plans slightly. Before selling her, he would rather have a taste of her. The buyer did not say that she had to be a virgin. Although this woman looked pure, one could not judge a book by its cover in this day and age. He guessed that she was not a virgin. "Haha, it's been quite tiring. How do you want me to reward you?" Wen Wan replied with a grin. "Beauty, do you still need to ask? You know." Vulture laughed lecherously. The two accomplices beside him also laughed lecherously. Creak, creak. Suddenly, there was the sound of footsteps in the snow behind them. When Juan and the three villainous men looked in the direction of the sound, they saw a clean-looking young man walking slowly on the snow. "Excuse me, how far is the nearest town from here?" Li Daochong asked politely as he walked. In the wilderness, three villainous men who did not look like good people were confronting a young woman. This kind of scene was very strange even if one used their toes to think. However, this young man who was slowly walking over did not seem to notice at all. It was as if he was walking on a street in a strange city and didn't know the way. Then, he asked a passerby for directions. Vulture recognized at a glance that the young man who was walking over was the young man who looked like a student sitting next to him on the flying shuttle bus. He had taken half a seat, but this guy did not even dare to fart. This kind of cowardly guy was Vulture's favorite. Usually, when he had no money to spend, Vulture would specially wait at the entrance of some unlicensed cultivation universities. He only had to stop them and curse them a few times. The other party would obediently hand over all their living expenses and then beg for mercy. Vulture would naturally leave behind some harsh words, take the money, and leave. When these soft-footed shrimps watched Vulture leave, they would look as if they had just survived a disaster and were willing to pay to avoid disaster. Vulture loved extorting soft-footed shrimps the most. In this remote and uninhabited place, he would just directly rob them. Easy. When Juan also recognized Li Daochong, this young man had been sitting quietly across from her on the flying shuttle bus. He was very quiet and had no sense of presence. He had been resting with his eyes closed the whole time. She could barely sense any spirit chi from him. He didn't seem to be a cultivator. At this moment, when Juan was a little puzzled. Why had he suddenly appeared here? She had glided for several kilometers. If he had just walked, he definitely wouldn't have been able to keep up. What was even stranger was that it was such a coincidence that this young man was walking in the exact same direction and just happened to run into them. When Juan's beautiful face inadvertently revealed a hint of a profound expression after she had weathered great storms and waves. Moreover, this young man was walking over very steadily. He didn't show the slightest bit of fear when he saw the three thugs. When ordinary people saw these kinds of thugs, they would involuntarily reveal a sense of timidity. Even if they pretended to be calm, they would still be able to see some clues. When Juan couldn't see any signs of concealment on this young man at all, he really did not seem to be afraid at all. When Juan raised the wristwatch on her wrist, there was a small magic treasure installed on it to detect cultivation, but there was no reaction at all. This young man was just an ordinary person. How could an ordinary person be so calm? The doubt in Wen Wan's beautiful eyes became a bit thicker. Was this guy a reckless person? Was he the kind of person who didn't care about anything? But how could he explain his appearance here? Was there some kind of hidden means of transportation? That couldn't be right. Wen Wan didn't notice at all that someone was approaching. She also didn't sense any sound of the snow-ground shuttle. While Wen Wan was still in doubt, Li Daochong had already arrived in front of her. Vulture looked at Li Daochong with a playful look. He laughed, "Boy, we're quite fated. I won't make things difficult for you. If you take out all the money you have on you, I can show you the way." Li Daochong said with a smile, "I need to pay to ask for directions." A big man next to Vulture pointed to the snow, then pointed to the needle tree, and said in a rough voice, "Little guy, don't you know? This road was opened by me, this tree was planted by me. If you want to pass through here, you have to pay for the road." Li Daochong was surprised. So powerful? The big man looked at Li Daochong as if he was looking at a fool. He laughed, "Yes, so powerful." Li Daochong scratched his head, "But I don't have any money. What should I do?" Vulture stared at him with a threatening look. Just as he was about to open his mouth, another big man whispered, Vulture, don't waste time on this poor boy. Be careful that girl runs away. Vulture turned his face to look at Wenwan, and then looked at the skateboard under her feet. It was not easy to catch up with her. If he was not careful and let this woman slip away, then he would be a fool. It was not worthwhile to lose a watermelon for a sesame seed. He said, "Boy, I'm in a good mood today. You can go. Whether you can get out of this needle forest depends on your own luck." Li Daochong responded and then continued to walk forward. He passed by the three big men and Wenwan. "Hey, little brother, would you like to do me a favor?" When Li Daochong passed by Wenwan, she suddenly called out politely, "What favor?" Li Daochong stopped. How could Li Daochong not see that the three big men's target was this young woman? However, the three big men did not know that this woman was extremely dangerous. Digging a hole. Wenwan smiled gracefully. "Not interested." Li Daochong replied and turned to leave. "I will pay you and take you to the nearest town. How about it?" Wenwan continued. Li Daochong stopped again. The reward was not attractive, but he really did not know where the nearest town was. It would take a lot of time to find such a big place. Li Daochong really did want to leave. He had followed them to find out what the death aura on the big man's body was. When he approached the big man, Li Daochong had already sensed the origin of the death aura on the big man's body. Like the Yin family, he had been possessed by the black resentment binding spirit. Low-level dark ghosts were not attractive to the current Li Daochong. These three big men were clearly not good people. Let them fend for themselves. Li Daochong regretted following them. As for the grudge between the young woman and the three big men, Li Daochong had no interest. Besides, the young woman's strength was enough to deal with the three of them. There was no need for him to meddle in other people's business. However, the woman said that she knew the nearest town. In order to save time, Li Daochong finally stopped and turned around. "How far is it?" Chapter 249. Li Daochong did not want to spend too much time looking for the town. He wanted to reach Shuangyuan town as soon as possible. When he heard the woman's words, he stopped and said with a calm face, "I'll help you." Vulture and the other two thugs were treated like air as if they did not exist. "Kid, you want to be a hero and save the beauty? Did you watch too many movies? I'll give you one more chance. If you don't leave, then don't leave," Vulture said fiercely. Li Daochong turned a deaf ear to him. He stood in the snow with his hands in his pockets and his gaze elsewhere. "Vulture, knock that woman out first, then kill this kid," the big man next to him reminded. Vulture nodded and said, "Go." As soon as he finished speaking, one of the big men rushed up and grabbed Wenwan. "Little brother, aren't you going to help me?" Wenwan turned to look at Li Daochong and asked, but the latter completely ignored her. Wenwan was very curious about this young man. This guy was so calm that it was a little scary, which made her vigilant. Wenwan wanted to see how strong this strange young man was. Although the detector showed that he was only in the second stage of the Qi refinement stage, it did not mean that this kid was a weakling. Not everyone could be so calm in the wilderness. If he did not have a story and experience, it was impossible for him to be in such a state in such a situation. Unfortunately, this kid had no intention of helping Wenwan. He was actually enjoying the scenery around him. "Little girl, you're counting on him? Ha, I think you're thinking too much." The big man who grabbed her laughed. Crack bang! Just as the big man was about to grab Wenwan's shoulder, the latter suddenly dodged and chopped the big man's wrist with her hand. Suddenly, the sound of bones breaking was heard. Then, Wenwan kicked the man's neck with a beautiful high whip kick. The big man grunted and fell heavily into the snow, no longer making a sound. Li Daochong, who was looking away, turned his face, his clear eyes showing a bit of surprise. This beautiful woman's strength was above Li Daochong's estimation. Not only that, but every move was ruthless and fatal. The burly man was already dead. It would be strange if a 5th-layer Qi practitioner didn't die after being kicked in the neck by a 9th-layer Qi practitioner. Vulture was stunned for a moment, then became furious. Bah, damn it. So he's a martial artist. No wonder he's so calm. Ai Hui, let's go together. As he spoke, Vulture and Ah Hui both took out a long saber and several spirit talismans. The two of them charged towards Wan at the same time. There was also a device on Vulture's wrist that could release a net. As long as he locked onto a target, he could capture the target alive. Wan tapped her foot and shot out like an arrow. What? Vulture's eyes widened. He couldn't see the woman's movements at all. Zing! A silver light flashed. Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. Ai Hui covered his neck and looked at Wan, who had appeared in front of him out of nowhere. He wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Only his mouth moved a few times. The silver dagger in Wan's hand emitted an icy aura. There were a few drops of blood on it, which were especially eye-catching on the snowy ground. Vulture saw this scene and no longer had the mood to capture people. He turned around and fled. He was already scared out of his wit. He didn't expect this seemingly weak young woman to be so cruel. She had already surpassed Vulture's understanding. She killed people without hesitation. Swoosh! When Wan's wrist flicked and the dagger in her hand flew across the air, hitting the back of Vulture's head. With a thud, Vulture's huge body fell to the ground, ending his evil life. He didn't expect that he would die in the hands of his prey. Wan only took a few seconds to deal with the three thugs. Little brother, help me dig a hole. Wan walked to Vulture's corpse and pulled out the dagger from the back of his head. Almost at the same time, a faint wisp of black gas drifted out from Vulture's body, taking away all his vitality. It followed the dagger and was about to enter Wan's body. Without batting an eyelid, Li Daochong shot out a telekinesis attack. Before the black gas could enter Wan's body, it was dispersed. Do you have tools? Li Daochong asked casually. Wan was once again curious about this young man's reaction. Even after witnessing the murder scene, this young man was still calm and composed. Aren't you afraid of me? Wan asked with a smile. Why should I be afraid of you? Li Daochong asked. I killed 3 people. You're the only witness. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you to prevent future trouble? Wan's smile froze and suddenly became serious. Li Daochong shrugged. If you wanted to do it, you would have done it long ago. Why talk so much nonsense? Wan was stunned, then laughed again. You're calm. What's your name? Li Daochong. Li Daochong directly reported his name. Wan. You can call me Sister One. You shouldn't be older than me. Wan said with a smile. Wan smiled on the surface, but in fact, she had been observing Li Daochong's expression changes, hoping to find clues of his disguise. However, Wan gained nothing. She couldn't tell that Li Daochong was pretending to be calm at all. Li Daochong curled his lip. You're digging a hole to bury the bodies? Wan smiled. Yes, it's getting late. Let's start. With that said, Wan took out 2 shovels from her storage ring and threw one to Li Daochong. Then the two dug a hole under a tall coniferous tree. This area was covered in snow all year round and the ground was stiff. Digging a hole was not an easy task. Of course, with Li Daochong's cultivation, this bit of frozen soil was nothing. Wan was a body cultivator, so it was naturally easy for her to pry open the ground. Wan asked Li Daochong not to dig too big, just a little deeper. Half an hour later, the two of them dug a deep hole together and threw the 3 frozen bodies into it. Wan took out some liquid and dripped it on the 3 bodies. Soon, the 3 bodies melted into a pool of black water. Then, she buried the hole and covered it with snow. After that, Wan threw Li Daochong 10,000 Federation dollars in cash. Li Daochong, this is your reward. Li Daochong did not stand on ceremony and put the money away. Then, he said, Take me to the nearby town. Wenwan thought for a moment and said, Before we go to the town, I have something to do. Why don't you come with me? Li Daochong frowned slightly. He was a little dissatisfied with Wenwan's sudden change. Take me to the town first, then go do your business. Wenwan looked at the time. There's no time. I have to go sell something. It'll be quick. It's just on the way to the town. If I go to the town first, I'll have to go back. With that said, Wenwan stepped on the skateboard and said, Come on up. Have you tried skateboarding before? Li Daochong did not reply and stood directly behind Wenwan. The skateboard was more than 2 meters long, and it was more than enough for 2 people to stand on. Moreover, the skateboard did not rely purely on manpower. There was a power spiritual array and a small jet on it. Wenwan saw Li Daochong standing up indifferently and reminded him, Li Daochong, stand firm. Big sister is going to speed up. Okay. Li Daochong responded. Wenwan had always been indifferent towards Li Daochong, which made her feel that this young man was not ordinary. An ordinary person would definitely not be in such a state. Standing in front of Li Daochong, Wenwan's face revealed a trace of craftiness. This kid was so calm. Then, let's do something exciting. Let's see if he can still keep it up. After thinking about it, Wenwan suddenly started the skateboard. With a whoosh, the skateboard instantly accelerated from its static state. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of meters had passed. Wenwan was surprised. She thought that with such a fast speed, Li Daochong would not be able to stand firm or even fall because he was not prepared. However, such a thing did not happen. Li Daochong stood behind without any reaction. Wenwan was not convinced. She immediately increased the speed of the skateboard to the maximum. Unfortunately, Li Daochong was even more stable than standing on flat ground. Wenwan's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of brilliance. This kid might be useful if she brought him along. This guy was not simple. As for the upcoming transaction, Wenwan was not confident. The other party had a deep background and was mixed in with the underground forces of planet Scarlet Sunday. He was not easy to deal with. The transaction was worth 100 million. Wenwan did not believe that the other party did not have any ulterior motives. Half an hour later, Wenwan brought Li Daochong to the foot of a snow-covered mountain. There was actually a large villa here. A man in a suit and sunglasses stood outside the door. When he saw Wenwan, he said, Miss Wen, you're an hour later than the agreed time. Our boss is a little impatient. Wenwan did not mind. Good things come with setbacks. Do you think it's so easy to get that thing? Cut the crap, let's go in. The man in sunglasses glanced at Li Daochong behind Wenwan and said in a low voice, Miss Wen, didn't the boss ask you to come alone? Wenwan was also a little unhappy. Her tone turned cold. I only brought one person. What do you plan to do? Cancel the transaction? The man in sunglasses was silent for a while. He did not say anything else. He turned around and opened the door. Follow me. When they entered the villa's courtyard, Li Daochong's brows flashed with a strange expression. There were 2 people lying in ambush on the left and 3 on the right. There were 4 people in the house, and 2 of them were in very special positions. When they entered the villa's hall, they could only see 2 people. One of them was sitting on a sofa made of tiger skin. He had a long face and swept-back hair. He looked very much like a villain in a movie. Behind him stood a middle-aged man with a cold expression. This person's aura was extremely strong. It was close to the 11th layer of qi refining. He was much stronger than Wenwan. Miss Wen, you're not very punctual, Song Jimin said with a displeased expression. It's good enough that you're here. Boss Song, I've brought the thing you wanted. Where are the spirit stones? Wenwan's tone was a little more dissatisfied. Miss Wen, don't you know that it's the rule to look at the goods first? Song Jimin's tone was cold. Wenwan stretched out her hand and a square wooden box appeared in her hand. The thing Boss Song wants is in here. Can you show me the spirit stones now? Open it, Song Jimin said without hesitation. Wan glanced at the middle-aged man behind Song Jimin. Her expression changed slightly, but she still opened the wooden box in the end. In an instant, the whole room was enveloped by a layer of halo. The overflowing spiritual energy instantly filled the room. Li Daocheng's pupils contracted. He was standing behind Wan and could not see what was in the box. However, his powerful telekinesis allowed him to perceive what was in the box as if he could see it. Chapter 250. The transaction item was a talisman, which Li Daocheng did not expect. At this time, his face also showed a surprised expression. Li Daocheng condensed his psychokinesis and probed the level of the talisman that was emitting rich spiritual energy. A level 10 talisman. Li Daocheng was shocked. With his current cultivation and ability, he could only make level 8 talismans at most. Before participating in the direct test, Li Daocheng could make level 7 talismans, but after coming back, he did not have time to study level 8 talismans. However, Li Daocheng's ability to make talismans was determined by his own cultivation level, which was at the peak stage of the qi-gathering realm. As long as he had enough materials and time, Li Daocheng believed that he would be able to make a rank 8 talisman. However, Li Daocheng knew that he could not make level 10 talismans. If he could break through and enter the foundation establishment stage, it would be possible. The value of a level 10 talisman was self-evident. A cultivator in the 4th or 5th level of the qi refining stage could easily trigger a level 10 talisman. If a foundation establishment cultivator was not in the middle or late stage of the foundation establishment stage, once locked by a level 10 talisman, they would die without a doubt. The power of a level 10 talisman, to put it simply, was almost equivalent to a TNT equivalent of a ton of missiles. However, the elemental power in the talisman would have additional damage, and the actual destructive power was even greater. Even a foundation establishment cultivator would not be able to withstand it. The same level 10 talisman could easily kill a malicious spirit. The most powerful malicious spirit could not withstand the bombardment of a level 10 talisman. Only a soul catcher could withstand the attack of a level 10 talisman. Not only that, the biggest advantage of a talisman was that the release conditions were very low. As long as an ordinary person had a talisman gun and enough spirit stones to trigger the talisman, they could kill a foundation establishment cultivator with one shot. However, a talisman gun was an extremely luxurious military equipment, and the consumption of spirit stones reached an astonishing 100 spirit stones. Needless to say, the value of a level 10 talisman was more than 100 million spirit stones. Not to mention ordinary people, even the 4 major families of Blue Bay Star could not afford a few shots. Moreover, there was a possibility that it would not hit. If it did not hit, more than 100 million spirit stones would be burned. This was the first level 10 talisman that Li Daocheng saw. The spirit energy emitted from it had a very obvious cold aura. A level 10 ice talisman. If triggered, everything within a 1-mile radius would be frozen into ice. The moment Song Jimin opened the wooden box, his eyes revealed a look of amazement. He had never seen a real level 10 talisman before. Even a big shot like him wouldn't be able to see such a high-end thing. Only cultivators could afford talismans above the 7th level. Song Jimin didn't dare to make too much noise when he purchased the 10th level talisman. Through his connections, he secretly contacted a few outlaws in the black market to search for the talismans. Wan was one of them. After leaving the Dark Knight, Wan did whatever she did to earn money. Most of it was shady. Song Jimin's heart was surging with emotions. He wished he could rush up and immediately take that level 10 talisman for himself. However, he was very clear about what kind of person Wan was. Under that delicate face hid a ruthless heart. He couldn't be fooled by her appearance. Song Jimin raised his hand. Master Wang, help me check if it's real or fake. The middle-aged man standing behind Song Jimin walked forward and took a closer look. Boss Song, this is the real deal. The spirit patterns on this spirit talisman are vigorous and powerful. Within each pattern, there is a dark pattern that intersects with each other. The spirit array formed is simple and ancient. It is rated at least level 10. When Song Jimin heard Master Wang's evaluation, he couldn't hide the ecstasy in his heart. He stared at the small wooden box in Wenwan's hands. Boss Song, I've brought what you wanted. You've also checked the goods. Where's my 50,000 spirit stones? Wenwan immediately closed the wooden box. The spirit energy in the room instantly disappeared. The spirit order pattern on the 10th level talisman had the effect of attracting spirit energy. The talisman also had its own spirit energy. Once it appeared, it would immediately cause the surrounding spirit energy to become dense. The small wooden box in Wenwan's hands had the effect of isolating the talisman. After it was closed, the talisman was suppressed. Song Jimin casually smiled and said, Miss Wan, I think we can change the deal between us. Wenwan's expression didn't change much, but her heart was on guard. She knew from the start that today's deal wouldn't be so easy. Boss Song, doing business is all about integrity. I only want 50,000 spirit stones. If there are any changes, I won't sell it. Wenwan said as she turned to leave. Won't sell it? Miss Wan, I'm afraid it's not up to you. This talisman in exchange for your life is still very worth it. This deal is worth it. Leave the talisman and I won't make things difficult for you. If you don't, then don't blame me for being impolite. Song Jimin said fearlessly. As he spoke, Song Jimin snapped his fingers. Immediately, 5 cultivators dressed in Taoist robes of various colors rushed in from different directions of the house. Each of them held a few talismans in their hands. They were all level 6 talismans. Level 6 talismans were enough to kill anyone below the Qi gathering realm. Wenwan and Li Daochong were instantly surrounded. Wenwan's face didn't have the slightest trace of panic. Instead, she revealed a trace of a smile. Boss Song, it seems like you're planning to rob me. So what? Wenwan, you used to be in the Dark Night. This kind of thing is not rare in the Dark Night. You should be mentally prepared. Song Jimin completely shed all pretense of cordiality. Wenwan smiled and said, Boss Song, since you know that I used to be in the Dark Night, then you should be mentally prepared. Do you think I'll come empty-handed? Song Jimin didn't care at all. So what if you came prepared? Wenwan, I've thoroughly investigated your background, including your cultivation, specialties, and weapons. I've brought so many people here just in case. Otherwise, Grandmaster Wang would be able to take you down by himself. Wenwan's smile deepened. Boss Song, in this line of work, I don't take my life seriously. Either you let me go, or we'll all die together today. Wenwan said as she took off her coat. In an instant, a manic aura filled the whole room. It was completely different from the majestic aura emitted by the talismans before. It seemed that it could explode at any time. Wenwan's clothes were full of talismans, but these talismans were different from normal talismans. The spirit order on them was messy and full of black lines like black gunpowder. Explosive talisman. Song Jimin's face froze. A trace of sweat flowed down from his cheek. Li Daochong glanced at Wenwan in surprise. This woman looked pleasant and always had a smile on her face. Who would have thought that there were so many explosive talismans in her clothes? There were dozens of them. The power of the explosive talisman was equivalent to the power of a level 4 fire talisman, but the production cost was much lower and could be mass-produced. However, the explosive talisman couldn't be launched. Once it was triggered, it would explode immediately. Usually, the explosive talisman could only be used as landmines and directional explosive. With so many explosive talismans, as long as one exploded, the rest would all be ignited. The explosive talisman itself had a chaotic spiritual array. When it was hit or ignited, it would explode. Miss One, if I wasn't here, you might have some use for these explosive talismans. But with me here, do you think you have the time to detonate them? The middle-aged man called Master Wang laughed. You can try. When Wan shrugged, looking indifferent. This woman really didn't take life and death seriously. Li Daocheng's clear eyes flashed with a trace of appreciation. Ordinary explosive talismans posed no threat to the current Li Daocheng. Even if they were to explode and turn this place into ruins, they would not be able to harm his body of jade bones and spirit muscles. He was only one step away from breaking away from his mortal body. How could such an ordinary explosive talisman harm him? Li Daocheng, I'm sorry. I didn't expect things to be like this. If I knew, I wouldn't have brought you here. I'll carry you on my back on the road to the underworld, Wen Wan said with a strong sense of jianghu. From beginning to end, Li Daocheng stood beside Wen Wan without saying a word. She almost couldn't feel his existence. That's not necessary. I don't want to go to the road to the underworld for the time being, Li Daocheng faintly replied. This was the first sentence he said since entering the room. Li Daocheng didn't want to interfere. Although level 10 talismans were tempting, as long as he was given some time, he would be able to make them himself. So he didn't want to watch. The temptation of 50,000 spirit stones was relatively large. It was just that he hadn't seen the real thing yet. Whether these guys had it or not was another matter. After all, this was not a small number. The total market value of so many spirit stones was at least 100 million. If they really sold it, it would be more than that. When he came in, Li Daocheng was actually a little unhappy. Wen Wan said that she had something to do, but it turned out that she wanted to make a deal with the underworld. However, when Wen Wan looked at him guiltily and said such words, Li Daocheng changed his mind. In this kind of situation, it was impossible for people to disguise their emotions. Wen Wan and he had just met not long ago. They weren't friends, but the apology she showed at the moment was real. Wen Wan really didn't expect that Song Jimin would ambush so many people and even invite a great expert. That Master Wang was also a body refining grandmaster. Although Wen Wan had prepared for the worst and prepared so many explosive talismans, she thought that she wouldn't need to use them. Song Jimin, Master Wang, and the others didn't look at Li Daocheng. This young man who was brought in by Wen Wan, the detector had already shown that his cultivation was level 2 qi refining. This kind of person Song Jimin could kill in seconds. He wasn't even worth mentioning, so they just treated him as if he didn't exist. At this time, hearing Li Daocheng's words, Song Jimin smiled sinisterly. Young man, whether you go or not is not up to you. Li Daocheng suddenly held his head with both hands and said lightly, I'm in a hurry. If you don't want to die, quickly take out the 50,000 spirit stones and then complete the deal. Then we'll leave, how about it? Song Jimin's face froze. Everyone looked at each other. Wen Wan looked at Li Daocheng dumbfoundedly. She never dreamed that he would suddenly say such brainless words. She thought to herself, did this kid eat the wrong medicine? Master Wang looked up and laughed, ha ha ha, young man, it's okay to be young and impetuous, but it's your fault for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. At the peak of the Qi gathering realm, one was already half a step into the ranks of cultivators. Those below the Qi gathering realm were really nothing. I'm really in a hurry, Li Daocheng repeated. Your hurry has nothing to do with me. Master Wang suddenly stopped laughing and angrily rebuked. Bang! Just as he finished speaking, there was a muffled sound. Master Wang flew out like a missile and crashed through the 2 walls behind him. He fell to the ground with a deep depression in his chest. His expression was still the same as when he spoke, motionless. Song Jimin and his men were shocked. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.